Chapter 3306. State of Mind. Lin Sun couldn't help laughing and said, "You're wrong. You and I are the same, so our state of mind is naturally the same. Of course, it's meaningless to talk about this. In the final analysis, only one of us can survive." As he said, he suddenly raised his hand and pressed his finger in the air. Boom! Endless sword intent emerged and condensed into a sword chi. In the sword chi there was all the profound meaning of nirvana. Lin Sun was shocked. He was extremely familiar with the power, aura, and presence of the sword. It was something that came from his cultivation in the first place. In other words, besides him, it was utterly impossible for anyone else to execute this strand of sword chi. But now it was displayed by Lin Sun opposite him. How could Lin Sun not be shocked? "Go!" he shouted softly. The voice, eyes, and even the indifferent expression of Lin Sun made Lin Sun feel like looking into a mirror. But before Lin Sun could think more, the sword chi had come. However, when he was about to deal with it, he suddenly found that he seemed to have lost control of his own cultivation and could only watch the sword coming. Puff! Under the sword, Lin Sun was seriously injured. Blood splashed, and his body was cut with a sword mark, which almost cut open his stomach. The injury was very serious. But compared with this, what was more unacceptable was that he was seriously injured by the sword that should have belonged to him. "There's no need to struggle. I'll kill you and I'll be you." In other words, our state of mind, temperament, cultivation, wisdom, and the great Tao are the same. Your death will help me, and it will also help you. Not far away, Lin Sun said indifferently. As he said, he raised his hand and chopped again. Bang! Lin Sun still failed to resist and was destroyed by the sword. His Taoist body was completely broken like a porcelain full of cracks and was about to fall apart. If it were someone else, he would have been defeated by this strange scene and would have fallen into an unbearable sense of collapse. But Lin Sun didn't. He tried hard to recall all the details he had experienced before. "One more sword strike and your Taoist body will be destroyed. Are you still not going to give up?" In the distance, Lin Sun frowned slightly. But at this moment, Lin Sun suddenly straightened up his broken and bloody body and said calmly, "I see. Now you don't exist at all. What I'm facing is just a tribulation in my mind." He paused for a moment before a sneer appeared on his face. "Or perhaps, you're just a heart tribulation caused by my heart tribulation." On the opposite side, Lin Sun was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly laughed. "It's hard to say who will be the one suffering." Saying, he pressed his fingers together and slashed with his sword. But at this moment Lin Sun closed his eyes. All the distracting thoughts disappeared, and all his consciousness returned to his state of mind. The heart is the space of an inch, the place where the spirit lies. Mental states were often the most mysterious and difficult to comprehend. But for Lin Sun, he wasn't unfamiliar with this kind of strength. Moreover, when he was in the mortal transformation realm, he relied on the battle with the karmic Tao idol left behind by his master, the master of the heart core, to temper his state of mind to the state of wandering the heart, connecting the ages. It could be said that in terms of the tempering of the state of mind, no one in this world could be compared with Lin Sun. However, Lin Sun didn't expect that on the path of Tao cutting, the tribulation of Tao cutting would turn into a heart tribulation, and launched a surprise attack on him without him noticing it at all. But now that he had completely come to his senses, he naturally had a solution. The state of mind could also be regarded as the secret realm of the heart. Even the practitioners themselves couldn't peep into the scene of their own state of mind. Ordinary knowledge, feelings, joy, anger, sorrow, joy, and all kinds of obsessions actually originated from the state of mind. And at this moment, when Lin Sun's consciousness returned to the place of the state of mind, he saw the heart tribulation. This tribulation was invisible, but when it appeared in the state of mind, it had already turned into Lin Sun's appearance. It was like the heart thief and heart demon, but different from the heart thief and heart demon. Heart thief and heart demon were both formed by obsessions, and this heart tribulation was formed by the tribulation of Tao cutting. I finally found you. A strong killing intent appeared in Lin Sun's mind. Suddenly, the scene in his state of mind changed, condensed into a sword, and cut at the heart tribulation. Heart like a sword, cut the heart tribulation. Silently, the Lin Sun formed by the heart tribulation disappeared, and was destroyed by the heart sword. But soon, the heart tribulation condensed again and sneered. I come from your state of mind. Destroying me is equivalent to destroying your state of mind. Swish. In the state of mind, another sword condensed, and cut down without hesitation. The heart tribulation was destroyed, and it couldn't be resisted at all, so it was crushed. This state of mind was originally Lin Sun's domain. Since he had already noticed the existence of the heart tribulation, he naturally didn't want to talk nonsense when he attacked. Soon, the heart tribulation condensed again. But the moment it condensed, it was destroyed by a sword. Just like that, the heart tribulations continued to appear and be destroyed repeatedly. It gave off the feeling that the heart tribulations were indestructible and could not be erased. But Lin Sun could feel that the breath of the heart tribulation was weakening little by little, but it was difficult to notice it if one didn't sense it carefully. Therefore, he didn't stop at all from beginning to end, and kept cutting with the heart sword. At this time, Lin Sun completely understood. The Lin Sun he saw before didn't exist at all. It was because of the tribulation in his state of mind that his perception was affected, and a real illusion appeared. The reason why he had been injured by that punch was because there had been a problem with his perception, causing the punch to land on his body. Similarly, the two sword strikes of Lin Sun were actually performed by himself. Of course, it was impossible for him to avoid it. In the final analysis, everything was caused by the heart tribulation. The only thing Lin Sun didn't expect was that even with his state of mind, he was unconsciously affected. It could be seen how terrible the Tao cutting tribulation was. No wonder even the infinite Tao Lord and the infinite Dominator had a narrow escape on this road. In fact, Lin Sun didn't know that the dangers he experienced on the road of Tao cutting tribulation were far greater than those who had set foot on this road in the past. The reason was that the more powerful a practitioner was, the more terrible the Tao cutting tribulation would be on the road of Tao cutting tribulation. Just like the tribulation of the heart he was experiencing at this moment. It was precisely because his mental state had attained the state where the heart roamed the world that it caused the tribulation of the heart to become extremely strange and terrifying. Time went by. Lin Sun didn't know how many times he had cut the heart tribulation before it gradually became blurred and weak. In the end, after being cut again, the heart tribulation completely disappeared and never appeared again. At this point, Lin Sun breathed a sigh of relief. It was also at this moment that he clearly felt that his state of mind seemed to be cut off an invisible fetter at the moment of cutting off the heart tribulation, and his whole body had a kind of indescribable relaxation and freedom. Then, Lin Sun had many incredible insight. The previous Tao cutting tribulation aimed at the past, cut off the karma of the past. At this time, the Tao cutting tribulation aimed at the present, cut off the karma of the present. At this point, his every move and every word would no longer be calculated by others, nor would it be noticed and perceived by all the Tao in the world. At the same time, bursts of chaotic power emerged from the Tao cutting tribulation under his feet, submerging Lin Sun's seriously damaged Tao body. It was visible to the naked eye that his injury almost recovered in a few breaths, and Lin Sun felt that the Tao he had mastered had further transformed and was getting closer to the state of chaos. Cutting off the karma of the past and the fetter of the present made me suffer from all kinds of fatal tribulations, but I also got 2 eras in succession, which made my Tao approach the realm of chaos step by step. Lin Sun felt the changes in his body and thought of the saying, at the beginning of chaos, the beginning of heaven and earth. When he was in the heaven and earth world, his Tao had transformed into the Tao of heaven and earth. Now, his Tao was transforming into the Tao of chaos. From the outside to the inside, it touched the essence of Tao. After a long time, the changes in Lin Sun's body came to an end. On the other hand, his aura had become ethereal and ethereal. He stood there casually, yet he seemed to be standing outside of time and space and transcending above karma. I wonder how much killing intent is hidden in the next tribulation of the future. As he pondered, Lin Sun strode forward. The Tao-cutting tribulation was condensed from the aura of the source of chaos, and it ran through the boundless void and stretched towards the depths as if there was no end to it. All along the way, Lin Sun was vigilant at all times. Unexpectedly, there wasn't any danger along the way. Apart from some illusory mist, there wasn't any danger in the mist. After moving forward for an unknown period of time, Lin Sun frowned. The Tao-cutting tribulation severed the Tao of the past, present, and future. He'd already resolved the past and present tribulations, but the tribulation of the future hadn't appeared for a long time. This was slightly unusual. Could it be that the mist is the tribulation of the Tao-cutting tribulation that targets the future? Lin Sun stopped and looked once more at the mist that floated in the void in the distance. Before experiencing the past and present tribulations of the Tao-cutting tribulation, there was nothing around the Tao-cutting tribulation, and there was no mist at all. In other words, the mist appeared later. But along the way, although the mist could be seen everywhere, there was no danger, and Lin Sun didn't feel any threat, so he ignored it. But now, the tribulation of the future hadn't appeared for a long time, which made Lin Sun realize that there might be something strange about the mist. Thinking of this, Lin Sun released the power of his divine awareness and swept towards the mist in the distance. Clatter, the motionless mist, seemed to be frightened at this moment, and it retreated further away, as if it was afraid of being touched by Lin Sun's divine awareness. Sure enough, there's something wrong. Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart. But immediately, he couldn't help but have some doubts. If the mist was the tribulation of the future, why did it seem to be extremely afraid of him approaching it? Chapter 3307. Lin Sun decided to try again. In the endless void on both sides of the path, there was a lot of gray mist floating around, like pieces of gray cotton. Clatter, Lin Sun spread his spiritual awareness and swept towards the nearest mist nearby. The mist also seemed to be startled and fled into the distance. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help raising his eyebrows. If this mist is aimed at the future catastrophe of Tao-cutting, why is it afraid to approach me? The catastrophe of Tao-cutting. Could it be that this catastrophe has already noticed that there is no chance for it to attack me on my future path? Lin Sun couldn't help thinking. With his current cultivation and mastery of the Tao of Fate, he could also deduce some mysteries related to the future. But every time he got the mystery, there was a word change. Just like water, there were infinite changes hidden in the future, and there was almost no fixed fate. Of course, this was the mystery Lin Sun got by deducing his own future. When deducing other things and cause and effect, there would be no such change. In Lin Sun's view, the reason why his future path would show a trend of change had a great relationship with his Tao based on the nirvana ultimacy. After all, the essence of nirvana ultimacy was change. It could transform life, and it could also make the Tao and all things have different changes. In other words, in Lin Sun's speculation, his future had been influenced by the nirvana ultimacy a long time ago, showing an unpredictable variable. Now, when he saw the mist constantly dodging him on the path of Tao-cutting, Lin Sun vaguely understood. The catastrophe of the future was to cut his own future path. But because his future path was full of changes, the catastrophe of the future couldn't start. Thinking of this, Lin Sun's eyes became strange. But if so, how can I go through the path of Tao-cutting? Forget it. Lin Sun made a decision. Since you don't come, I will find you. He suddenly took a deep breath. His figure suddenly glowed and turned into a great abyss that swallowed the heavens. In an instant it rotated thousands of times, simply like a storm vortex that swept through the heavens, and rumbling sounds began to surge in this world of nothingness. Near the path, the gray mist was frightened, but when they tried to hide far away, they were pulled and devoured by the power of the abyss, causing them to uncontrollably approach Lin soon. Crash, crash, the mist turned into gray airflow and was carried into Lin's body by the rotating abyss. At this moment, Lin soon felt the power of Tao cutting tribulation, but this kind of power had already been crushed by his own cultivation. After pouring into his body, it turned into a wisp of obscure and magical power of the origin of chaos. As expected, it's precisely because this Tao's severing tribulation that's targeting the future can't do anything to me that it hasn't dared to approach me. While Lin Sun was thinking, a steady stream of mist had been swept into the vortex of the abyss and turned into wisps of the origin of chaos. And Lin Sun could feel that his Tao was changing, constantly approaching the state of chaos and becoming stronger and stronger. No one knew how long. Boom. When all the mist around the path of Tao cutting tribulation was refined, the power of Tao in Lin Sun's body completely transformed into the Tao of chaos. It was chaotic and indescribable. Even the power of nirvana ultimacy had undergone a transformation, showing the most primitive aura of chaos. In the past, Lin Sun had also seen a lot of chaotic power, such as the origin of chaos that gave birth to a world, the aura of the chaos tree, and so on. But those were just the side branches of chaos, completely different from the chaos on the path of Tao. The simplest example was that a cultivator's control of the Tao had to go through the levels of Tao aura, Tao will, longevity law, divine law, emperor law, immortal law, eternal law, and so on. This was a kind of seeking process from the outside to the inside, from the outside to the inside. After the eternal law, it was the Tao of heaven and earth, and after the Tao of heaven and earth, it was chaos. Why was there a rumor in the world that the more Tao fruits of chaos one refined, the more hope one had in attaining transcendence in the ultimate realm of the boundless realm? The reason was because when all the Tao fruits one grasped transformed into the level of chaos, it was equivalent to one's understanding and seeking towards the Tao, and it would truly arrive at its source, essence, and most primitive state. Usually, those that were able to attain this realm possessed the cultivation of the boundless Tao Lord at the weakest, and the formidable even possessed the might of the boundless Dominator. On the other hand, a figure like Lin Sun, who'd attained the perfection stage of the boundless realm a long time ago in the Tao development world, was different. At this moment, he'd already attained the level of chaos on the Grand Tao. On the path of the Tao, he'd come into contact with the profundities of the Tao of life a long time ago. All of this caused his cultivation to undergo a subtle change in the perfection stage of the boundless realm a long time ago, and it was like he'd taken a step forward from the end of the eternal path of the Tao. I understand now. This is the source of the ruins of Tao. What it nurtures is the essence of eternity, and what it creates is the most essential profundities that lead to the Grand Tao. Sever the karma of the past, present, and future and escape from it. The path of the Tao is no longer shackled, and it's chaos. Only in this way would one be able to seek a higher path towards the Tao from the chaos. After a long time, Lin Sun muttered in his heart. Only in this way would one possess the ability to create a Tao that has never existed in the world. He'd sensed the profundities of the essence of eternity that he'd attained, and he'd experienced the profundities that belonged to the chaos. His entire understanding of the Grand Tao had become completely different from before. On the other hand, his current cultivation was like the chaos, and it was the mother of all Taos. He's Lin Sun. He's finally here. Suddenly, a wave of voices jolted Lin Sun back to his senses. He opened his eyes, and only now did he notice that the place he stood wasn't on the path of severing the Tao since a long time ago. He was instead on a mysterious platform that covered an area of 3 kilometers. This platform was ancient and primitive, and it was branded with the markings of chaotic clouds. It was suffused with strands of gray and hazy chaotic mist, and an aura that belonged to the quintessence of this world enveloped the entire platform. Far away from the platform was a world that seemed like it was in chaos. The sky was boundless while the ground was heavy, and one could faintly see numerous secret realms that were like stars that decorated the heavens and the earth. They were densely packed and seemed to be boundless, and they covered the boundless depths of the world. This was the mysterious God realm, and the place where he stood at this moment was the mysterious Tao platform. Lin Sun's gaze fell on the area near the mysterious Tao platform, and he saw a group of figures standing there. The leader was a figure that was as tall as a mountain, and he carried a pair of black and white swords on his back, but he looked like an old ape. Ape ancestor. Lin Sun's pupils narrowed. Back in the mortal transformation realm, he'd fought with the other party's Tao karma, so how could he not recognize him? As for the 9 people beside Ape Ancestor, Lin Sun was also very familiar with them. They were the Destiny Path Lord of the 9 divisions of Taichu, and he'd already seen their Tao karma in the mortal transformation realm. In addition, there were 2 other people standing beside Ape Ancestor. One was a skinny old man in a beast robe, and the other was a quiet and peaceful monk in a monk's robe. They were the founder of the witchcraft sect, Tian Wu, and the founder of the Zen sect, Shi. Lin Sun was also surprised to see such a group of enemies waiting there. Lin Sun. Xia Zhi's voice, which was like the sound of nature, sounded from the side. When he turned his head and saw Xia Zhi standing next to him, Lin Sun immediately smiled. Clearly, she had passed the path of cutting Tao earlier than him. This made Lin Sun feel completely at ease. Xia Zhi, don't be in a hurry to leave. Lin Sun warned her via voice transmission. He knew that the moment he arrived at the mysterious God realm, a game that had been waiting for a long time had already begun. As for Ape Ancestor and the Destiny Path Lord, Heaven Wizard, and Shi of the 9 divisions of Taichu, they were just the prelude to the show. Yes. Xia Zhi nodded. At this moment, she also realized that what she was about to face was an unpredictable and unprecedented killing tribulation. But she was not afraid. As long as Lin Sun was there, she was not afraid of anything. My name is Ape 9, and people call me Ape Ancestor. Greetings, Taoism Lin. Ape Ancestor spoke from a distance. His voice was old and deep, and his expression was neither sad nor happy. No emotion could be seen on his face. You're not waiting here to welcome me, are you? Lin Sun said casually, very relaxed. This was the Wondrous Way platform. As long as he stood here without moving, the enemy would not find any chance to attack him. What really puzzled Lin Sun was that why his master and senior golden cicada didn't show up at this time. That's right. It's just some subordinates of the Taichu sovereign. It's not worth it for Master and Senior Golden Cicada to take action personally, Lin Sun thought. At the same time, Ape Ancestor said, Taoism Lin, on your journey to the mysterious God realm, you must have learned a lot of things. You should also know that in the mysterious God realm, whether enemies or friends, they are all waiting for your arrival. After a pause, he continued, and we are waiting here for nothing more than one thing. What is it? Lin Sun asked. Ape Ancestor said, Taoism Lin, please come with us, or you can take the initiative to come with us. I understand that you're inviting me to leave. It's just a matter of fighting to see whose cultivation is higher. But I don't understand why you would ask me to take the initiative to go with you. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and said. Ape Ancestor said, in fact, even your Master Putti, Chen Shi, and Chen Linkong want to know why I took the lead and waited for you here. And now there is no need to hide it. With that, he looked at Lin Sun and said calmly, this game, from the beginning, is doomed. You will lose. This was not only for Lin Sun to hear, but also for the many supreme figures in the dark. From the beginning, I will lose? Lin Sun was silent for a while and suddenly laughed. What a big tone. This kind of words is destined not to be said by you. But even if it is Tai Chu who said it, where does he get the confidence? The ape ancestor said, the sect master is never one to exaggerate. Even his opponents in the profound God domain would absolutely not doubt that. Since Hierarch said so, since there is a reason, Taoism Lin, don't take it as an alarmist. After all, once you lose, sometimes you will lose many lives. The price paid is too high and too heavy. And this may not be what Taoism Lin wants to see. His words were very calm, as if he was patiently stating a fact to Lin Sun. But the meaning of his words made Lin Sun frown gradually. Chapter 3308. Profound God Domain. Hidden World. Subhuti frowned. He's definitely going to lose from the very beginning? He'd noticed Lin Sun's arrival at the Profound Tao platform, and he'd told Golden Cicada with a smile that the game was about to begin. But Subhuti was slightly surprised when he heard Ape Ancestor's words. Of course, it wasn't Ape Ancestor's intention. It represented Absolute Beginning's attitude. How could the Beginning, who was trapped under the sword chains, have the guts to say that he would lose for sure? Golden Cicada said warmly, it's easy to understand. In Absolute Beginning's opinion, both you and I, along with Chen Shi and Chen Linkong, were already in a situation where we were definitely going to lose before Lin Sun arrived. Subhuti fell silent for a moment before he said, in terms of cultivation, people like us are indeed slightly inferior to Absolute Beginning. But in the Profound God Domain, there's Chen Shi, the Supreme Overlord who controls samsara, and he's on par with Absolute Beginning in terms of the Grand Tao. But Absolute Beginning clearly thinks that even Chen Shi will lose. He couldn't figure it out. Since Absolute Beginning said this, it was definitely not an exaggeration. After all, there was no need for an existence like him to intimidate or put on airs. Then there was only one possibility left. Absolute Beginning had a plan. Moreover, it was enough to fight Chen Shi and make them lose everything. Subhuti couldn't help but reveal a wisp of seriousness when he thought up to here. Golden Cicada looked at Subhuti and said, fellow Taoist, wait a little longer. The game has just begun, and Absolute Beginning and Chen Shi haven't made a move yet. Subhuti nodded. We'll definitely lose, Primordial World. A figure pushed open the door and walked out of the hut. He carried an ancient sword on his back with ease. It was Chen Shi. He placed his hands behind his back and looked at the distant sky. Absolute Beginning, since Lin Sun is here, there's no need for you to continue hiding there. That swordsman's sword lock can trap you for a while, but it can't trap you forever. His voice was clear and casual. At the same time, Absolute Beginning's laughter resounded from deep underground in that chaotic world. Fellow Taoist Chen can't restrain himself as well? Heh! Chen Shi laughed. Since you think so, then let me see how long you'll wait. With that, he returned to the thatched cottage. In the primal chaos world, deep underground, Absolute Beginning couldn't help but sigh with satisfaction. There are enemies in this world, but my Tao isn't lonely. Not far away, the black crow on the branch was trembling. Earlier, when Chen Shi's voice resounded through this dimension, she'd felt a feeling of suffocation and despair. It was a form of true suppression of the Grand Tao, and it far exceeded her imagination. Little Crow, did you see that? This is Chen Shi's power. Just a single sentence from him can scare you to death. Absolute Beginning laughed, and he was actually very cheerful and happy. Sect leader, are they really going to lose? After a long time, Black Crow calmed himself down and asked. There are no absolutes in this world. The Beginning casually said, just watch the show. Black Crow fell silent. In front of the Profound Tao platform. Although these words aren't threats, they are no different from threats. Lin Sun, who was frowning, suddenly laughed. Then I really want to see how the hierarch behind you will make me lose. You'll definitely be able to see it. The ape ancestor nodded, looking as calm as before. He was not surprised by Lin's reaction. I want to see it too. Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from afar. Chen Linkong's figure appeared out of nowhere. Behind him were the Origin Sect's ancestral founder, Yuan Chu, and the Spirit Sect's ancestral founder, Xuyin. Little friend Lin, long time no see. As soon as he arrived, Chen Linkong waved his hand in greeting in an extremely carefree manner. Lin Sun also cupped his hands and greeted Chen Linkong, Yuan Chu, and Xuyin one by one. Then, he pointed at Ape Ancestor and said, "Seniors, be careful of these guys." Chen Linkong nodded. "Don't worry. Chen Linkong, you shouldn't have come." The Ape Ancestor looked at Chen Linkong with a calm expression. "You and the two people behind you will die for nothing." Chen Linkong couldn't help but be amused, and he said, "Then I really want to experience it." As he spoke, he asked Yuan Chu and Su Yin to retreat, and then a strand of terrifying chaotic sword intent surged out from his tall figure. In that instant, he seemed to have transformed into a ruler of the sword Dao, and his brilliance was boundless. "Ape Ancestor, I've wanted to test my strength with you for a long time. Why don't we do it now?" Chen Linkong spoke, and his voice seemed like an endless sword howl that resounded clearly. Such a graceful bearing was rarely seen in the world. The aura of the great perfection of the boundless realm, and his great Tao has already attained the chaotic realm. Lin Sun noticed Chen Linkong's charm with a single glance, and he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Without a doubt, Chen Linkong already possessed the qualifications to go against the Ape Ancestor. "You can't." The Ape Ancestor shook his head. He didn't show any disdain, but his calm and casual expression was undoubtedly the greatest rejection to Chen Linkong. Chen Linkong smiled and didn't say anything else. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. An expanse of chaotic flames condensed and transformed into a burning Taoist sword. As he flicked his finger, a clang resounded, and a sword howl resounded through the heavens and the earth. The invisible sword intent transformed into ripples that completely disregarded the restraints of time and space, and it spread towards the Ape Ancestor and the others. The Ape Ancestor's expression was still as calm as before. He didn't seem to move, but the figures of the 9 Destiny Path Lords, Heaven Shaman, and Shur were all moved behind him. At the same time, he stretched out his palm, formed a fist, and smashed it in the void. Boom! The invisible sword intent ripples shattered and exploded layer by layer. This scene made Lin Sun couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. The Ape Ancestor was naturally an existence at the great perfection of the boundless realm. His every move seemed casual, but in reality, it displayed a perfect and flawless posture, embracing yin and yang, and was impeccable. Clang! Chen Linkong stepped forward with his sword and stabbed in the void. Chaos emerged in the void, turning into a torrential rain of flaming swords that were like the Milky Way, illuminating the mountains and rivers in a dazzling manner. Such an attack affected the origin of the great Tao chaos. Not to mention other boundless realm figures, even the boundless Path Lord would find it hard to resist. The Ape Ancestor's sleeves fluttered, and his figure that was as tall as a mountain suddenly surged with chaotic chi, like a round and boundless Tai Chi, incomparably mysterious. Then, the Ape Ancestor punched out. Immediately, the sword intent and the fist force, 2 kinds of supreme power of the Tao path collided. It caused the heavens and the earth to tremble, and rays of light flowed. Lin soon noticed that the heavens and the earth of the mystic god domain were incomparably solid, and it was sufficient to withstand the impact of the great Tao energy. Rumble rumble Chen Linkong and the Ape Ancestor fought intensely, and it was like 2 eternal rulers were fighting. Every time they attacked, they would draw upon the chaotic energy, and the phenomena they revealed could be said to be boundlessly terrifying. With Lin Sun's current gaze, he instantly made a judgment. In a battle like this, Those figures at the level of the boundless path Lord couldn't participate at all, and once they did, they would die without a doubt. Because that level of strength already involved the utilization of the ultimate energy of the eternal path of the Tao, and it broke through the restraints of time and space. Every single move of theirs was a manifestation of the peak of their Tao path. Why don't we seize this opportunity to kill those fellows first? Xia Ji suddenly transmitted her voice, and her gaze looked towards the 9 envoys, Heaven Shaman, and Sure in the distance. These figures were absolutely existences that Lin Sun could only look up to before entering the ruins of profundity of Tao. But now, no matter if it was Lin Sun or Xia Ji, they had already far surpassed them on the Tao path, so they naturally wouldn't take them seriously. If I move, I'm afraid it will cause a lot of variables. Lin Sun raised his head and looked at the vast world in the distance. Due to the barrier of the power of the profound Tao platform, his divine sense was restricted. But he dared to conclude that whether it was Tai Chu, Black Crow, his master, Golden Cicada, or Chun Shi, they were probably paying attention to everything that happened here, and every move of Lin Sun, a variable, was bound to be the one they paid the most attention to. Once he left the profound Tao platform, it might lead to unpredictable variables. But if you don't move, how can you break the situation? Don't you have the confidence to fight against Tai Chu? Xia Ji couldn't help asking. Lin Sun was stunned at first, and then he couldn't help laughing. You're right. I can't see anything if I just stand here and watch. On the contrary, it will make those enemies think that I, Lin Sun, am not confident enough. Previously, he had guessed that since everyone in the mysterious god realm was waiting for him, they must have made a plan long ago. Therefore, after he arrived, he didn't act rashly. He intended to see how many variables would be caused by his arrival and how many means Tai Chu had prepared to deal with him. But now, Xia Ji's words made him suddenly realize that if he kept waiting, he was doomed to be in a passive position all the time. If he wanted to break the situation, he naturally had to get into the situation first. Otherwise, how could he know how many means and cards the enemy had? When he was strong enough, why should he be afraid of the many variables and killing tribulations when he broke the situation? I didn't expect that Xia Ji could see more clearly than me. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. Xia Ji said softly, You just worry about your master and others, so you have a lot of worries in your heart. But I'm different. I only care about you. Sometimes, the simplest and most direct idea was the most to the point. My only concern now is not the Tao or the opponent. Lin Sun looked at Xia Ji. You're worried that in the next battle, the variables that will appear will implicate me, so you plan to let me hide? Summer Solstice instantly understood. Telepathy was nothing more than this. Lin Sun nodded. Xia Ji didn't refuse and said, Okay. She knew that Lin Sun did this because he cared about her and regarded her as the most important person in his heart. How could she refuse? Lin Sun smiled, turned his sleeve, and took out the eternal boat. Xia Ji turned into a shadow and flew into it. After putting away the eternal boat, Lin Sun's heart completely calmed down. The mysterious god realm might be full of horrible killing tribulations and unexpected variables, but now, he had nothing to worry about. The next moment, Lin Sun stepped out of the mysterious Tao platform. When he moved, Pei Tu, Qin Yangzi and other Tao masters of the 9 divisions of Tai Chu, Heaven Wizard and Sure all noticed it. At the same time, Yuan Chu and Su Yin, Chun Linkong and Ape Ancestor, who were fighting fiercely, and Bodhi, Golden Cicada, Chun Shi and Tai Chu, who were waiting in different secret realms, also noticed it. All eyes, tangible and intangible, converged on Lin Sun's movement. There's more tonight. Chapter 3309. Taoist brother, he's moving. Golden Cicada stood up while his robe fluttered, and a profound light flickered in his eyes. Could it be that he'll be able to stay on the platform forever? Subhuti smiled as he stood up as well. Action leads to change, and change leads to success. In the end, we'll have to see if he succeeds or fails. I never expected that she would ask Chin Linkong to make a move, said Golden Cicada softly. Subhuti remained silent. His mind was focused on the profound Tao platform, the primordial spirit world. The thatched cottage was deathly silent. She didn't move, but he was paying attention from afar as well. Sect Master, he's coming out. At this moment, Black Crow actually felt indescribably excited. It was like he'd been waiting for countless years for such a scene to finally arrive. Deep underground, Absolute Beginning said, "Wait a little longer." Wait a little longer? Black Crow was slightly puzzled. Outside the platform, Pei Tu and the other Heaven's Mandate Tao Lords, Heaven Shaman, and Sure revealed solemn expressions as they prepared for battle. According to their previous inference, Lin Sun already possessed the strength of the boundless Tao Lord while he was in the universe of universe. However, they weren't sure if Lin Sun's cultivation had improved after overcoming the path of severing the path. At practically the exact same moment, Yuan Chu and Su Yin were accumulating strength and prepared to support Lin Sun. However, right at the moment he stepped out of the platform, Lin Sun suddenly turned around to look at Yuan Chu and Su Yin, and he said, "Seniors, just watch the show." Before he finished speaking, his figure had already completely left the profound Tao platform. At that moment, without the cover of the power of the profound Tao platform, Lin Sun's breath was also revealed. However, Pei Tu and the others frowned because Lin Sun's aura was simply like nothingness, and they couldn't sense it at all. It was like he didn't exist in this world at all, or like he'd fused with the world a long time ago. The world was him, and he was the world. The hearts of Pei Tu and the others shook when they noticed this. Even they, the boundless Tao Lords, were unable to see through it. Didn't this mean that Lin Sun's current cultivation far exceeded their understanding? At this moment, without the isolation of the platform, Lin Sun's divine sense and mind could truly sense the aura of the profound God domain. This God domain was obscure like the chaos, vast and boundless. In this endless world, there were countless secret realms. In 3 of these secret realms, he sensed a different aura. His master, the master of the square inch, and the golden cicada were in the same arcana realm. The former's aura was vast and profound, while the latter's aura was as calm as water. The second secret realm had a profound and unfathomable aura, and there were miraculous traces of samsara and divine talismans suffused the air. This was definitely the secret realm Senior Chen she resided in. Within the 3 secret realms, it was a sea of chaos. There was a bone-chilling aura, but there was also an extremely obscure aura that was almost undetectable. When he captured this obscure aura, Lin Sun immediately felt a sense of familiarity. Without a doubt, this was the aura of the primordial dominator. Lin Sun had seen it as early as in the spiritual realm. That bone-chilling aura definitely came from Absolute Beginning's first servant, Black Crow. But in next to no time, Lin Sun withdrew this feeling. He stood in the air as he glanced at Pei Tu and the others who were waiting in formation, and then he looked at the secret realm in the distance. He said, "Absolute Beginning, I've already established myself in this world. You wouldn't be intending to send these fellows to their deaths, right?" His voice was flat, but it resounded through the heavens and the earth. Even though Pei Tu, Tian Wu, and Shi's expressions were calm, they felt that it was absurd in their hearts. This Lin Sun actually doesn't take us seriously at all now? Primordial and Su Yin glanced at each other, and their expressions became strange as well. They were able to discern that Lin Sun really didn't take Pei Tu and the others seriously at all. Or it could be said that he directly disregarded them. Subhuti revealed a wisp of a gratified expression. So, he already possesses this level of cultivation. Taoist brother, you didn't expect this as well? Asked Golden Cicada. I thought that he would remain in the ultimate realm of the boundless realm like me, and if he wanted to come into contact with the Tao of life, then he would have to seek it from the profound God domain. but now it would seem like he's already ahead of me. Subhudi's brows, gaze, and the corners of his mouth were filled with a heartfelt smile. In the past, I told those disciples that the disciple didn't have to be inferior to the master. But now Lin Sun has already surpassed the master. Golden Cicada fell silent for a moment, and then he smiled as well. It's unexpected indeed. Of course, he didn't let down Taoist brothers' efforts. Lin Sun. A surprised exclamation of praise resounded from the thatched cottage in the primordial world. Being unexpected was a variable in itself. This is interesting. But there's no rush, the game has only just begun. Young brother Lin, I'll give you a chance to take a good look at the profound God domain. Right at this moment, Absolute Beginning's voice resounded in the heavens and the earth on the profound Tao platform, and his voice was neither fast nor slow as he spoke casually. Ape Ancestor, bring them back. All right. The ape ancestor who was fighting intensely with Chen Linkong nodded in agreement. Want to leave? Did I agree to that? Chen Linkong sneered. Why would I need your permission if I wanted to leave? The ape ancestor's expression was calm and indifferent. Bang! In the next moment, the imposing aura on his body that was tall like a mountain suddenly changed, and he actually forcefully blasted Chen Linkong over 100 m back with a single punch. Pooh! When he steadied himself, Chen Linkong's chest rose and fell rapidly, and he actually couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. This scene caused everyone present to be surprised. What was supposed to have been an evenly matched battle had been broken by the ape ancestor's terrifying technique in an instant. Even Lin Sun hadn't expected this to happen. Swoosh! The ape ancestor teleported over, and he flicked his sleeve with the intention of leaving with Pei Tu and the others. Lin Sun immediately pressed his fingers together and stabbed forward. A strand of sword chi appeared out of thin air and slashed down towards the ape ancestor. When they sensed the aura contained within this sword strike, Pei Tu and the others noticed to their horror that they actually couldn't arouse any thoughts of resisting it, and only deep powerlessness and despair remained. Moreover, this sword strike was slashing towards the ape ancestor. They didn't dare to imagine how terrifying this sword strike would be if it was aimed at them. It was also at this time that they finally understood why Lin Sun had ignored them before. On the path of Tao, Lin Sun had long left them, the boundless Tao masters, far behind. In the face of Lin Sun's sword strike, the ape ancestor, who was as tall as a mountain, suddenly shrank to a height of about 10 m, but his aura was much stronger than before. As he smashed out with his fist, Lin Sun's sword chi was actually blocked, and then it exploded together with the fist force. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion resounded, and the divine light swept across the world. The ape ancestor had already taken this opportunity to disappear into thin air with Pei Tu and the others. When Lin Sun wanted to chase after him, it was already a step too late. In fact, he didn't expect that the ape ancestor could actually block his sword strike, so he missed the opportunity to chase after him. This series of actions happened extremely quickly. When the curtain fell, Yuan Chu, Su Yin and the others near the Xian God realm were already in a cold sweat. The strength that Lin Sun showed surprised everyone. But at this moment, the strength that the ape ancestor revealed was even more shocking. This old thing, he actually concealed so much strength. In the distance, Chen Linkong wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his expression became serious. When he thought of the previous battle, he felt a chill in his heart. If the ape ancestor had directly used his full strength from the beginning, would he still be able to persist until now? When he thought of this, Chen Linkong felt a chill down his spine. He has already taken a step from this ultimate realm, and touched the mystery of the way of life. At this moment, Lin Sun finally dared to conclude that the ape ancestor's true cultivation was not at the great perfection of the boundless realm, but had taken that step in this realm, just like himself. This made him unable to help but shiver. He thought of what the ape ancestor had said before, that from the beginning of this game, they were destined to lose without a doubt. In this way, it seemed that the ape ancestor's true strength was one of the trump cards of Tai Chu. This time, it was you who saved me. Chun Linkong walked over and looked Lin Sun up and down. If you hadn't taken that step, I'm afraid that old man Tai Chu would not have let the ape ancestor retreat. He really didn't expect that Lin Sun, who had broken through the way of severing, had already reached such a level. Senior, this is not a good place to talk. Lin Sun smiled. Although the previous situation had been resolved, Lin Sun didn't dare to be careless when he thought of the power exposed by the ape ancestor. No one knew whether Tai Chu had other means. Would you like to meet my grandfather? Chun Linkong invited. Lin Sun thought for a while and said, I'd better wait until I meet my master, and then I'll go to meet Senior Chun Shi. Chun Linkong nodded and then said doubtfully, Why do I feel that the ape ancestor retreated too suddenly? Although there were some changes, it still felt like a tiger's head but a snake's tail. Lin Sun said, If I was at the great perfection of the boundless realm, and the ape ancestor didn't expose his strength, this situation would not be easy to resolve. Chun Linkong thought for a moment and suddenly gasped, Yes, even if my grandfather took action at that time, the ape ancestor would definitely try his best to stop him. Even if he was not my grandfather's opponent, he could at least stop him for a while. And taking advantage of this opportunity, old Tai Chu could deal with you. At that time, even if your Master Beauty and Golden Cicada took action together, I'm afraid they couldn't stop Tai Chu. This wasn't to slander Subhoodie and Golden Cicada's cultivation, and it was instead because everyone in the profound God domain was clearly aware that the only person capable of threatening a figure like Absolute Beginning was Chun Shi. Once Chun Shi was stopped, Tai Chu would be unmatched and unstoppable. And it was precisely because Lin Sun's Taoism was not only at the great perfection of the boundless realm as everyone speculated, that there was a change in such a killing situation. After noticing all this, Tai Chu made a prompt decision and let the ape ancestor choose to retreat with his people. It could be said that the previous situation seemed to end in a very short time, but a little carelessness would be a great disaster. On one side, Yuan Shu and Shuyin were also shocked and their faces changed when they heard Chun Linkong's analysis. Indeed, if it weren't for the change in Lin Sun's Taoism, the killing intent contained in this situation would be fatal enough. The fourth watch was delivered. There was no more tonight. Chapter 33:10. Beneath the Sky. Lin Sun, Chun Linkong, Yuan Shu, and Su Yin flashed towards the distance. On the way, Lin Sun found out that Yuan Shu, Su Yin, and Chun Linkong had been hiding in the primordial world all these years. His masters, the Core Master and Golden Cicada, resided in the hidden world instead. As for their enemies, the Absolute Beginning Ruler and Hei Yi resided in the Grand Chaos world. The Ape Ancestor and the other 9 Heaven Fate Downlords resided in the Dark Spirit world. But no matter which secret realm it was, all of them had a similarity, and it was the quintessence energy of chaos that belonged to the profound God domain could be absorbed and refined there. On the other hand, the other secret realms in the profound God domain were mostly in a desolate and exhausted state. According to what Chun Linkong said, the profound God domain was extremely vast, and the secret realms that were distributed throughout it were innumerable. However, secret realms like the primordial spirit world, hidden realm, grand chaos world, and dark spirit world could already be said to be the best places of cultivation amongst all the secret realms. Most importantly, cultivating in these 4 secret realms gave one a chance to sense the aura of the forbidden area of profundity. The forbidden area of profundity was where the profound God domain resided, and it was taken to be a forbidden zone for life. According to rumor, there was a path towards the Tao that surpassed the eternal path towards the Tao within it. The Tao of life. In the countless years of the past, Supreme existences like Qin, Shi, and Absolute Beginning had been constantly sensing and deducing the aura within the forbidden area of profundity. As they spoke, Lin Sun's group had arrived at the entrance to the hidden world. The entrance to this world was like a vortex passageway condensed from chaos, and it was extremely mysterious. Controlling the quintessence of chaos within this world allows one to take precautions against any unexpected events while cultivating within it, and one doesn't have to worry about being ambushed by enemies. That's what we've been doing all these years. Chen Linkong smiled as he explained. In other words, under normal circumstances, no one would choose to leave a secret realm because it's extremely easy for them to suffer an attack from their enemies. The situation today is exactly like that. Lin Sun came to a sudden understanding. As they spoke, the vortex passageway surged, and then a voice resounded, "Lin Sun, quickly come in." The warm voice came from the core master. Yes. Lin Sun restrained the excitement in his heart, and he cupped his hands towards Chen Linkong and the others. "I'll pay all of you a visit another day." Chen Linkong smiled and nodded. "Go ahead." Lin Sun turned around, walked into the whirlpool tunnel and disappeared. Chen Linkong and the others continued to fly forward. The Great Chaos Realm. The aura of primal chaos filled the air. When Ancestor Ape brought them into this world, Pei Tu and the others, Tian Wu, and Shi could not help but feel a trace of caution in their hearts, and their expressions became solemn. Countless years had passed, but this was the first time they had entered the residence of Sect Master Tai Chu. In the boundless heavens and the earth, the mountains and rivers rose and fell, and all of them were covered in a layer of chaotic aura. It caused everything in the world to seem dim and blurry. Very quickly, a bald black ancient tree appeared on the ground, and it took root there all by itself. On the branch of the ancient tree stood a crow with pitch-black feathers and a pair of blood-red eyes. It was Absolute Beginning's first servant, Black Crow. "Greetings, young mistress." Pei Tu and the others bowed. "Don't you feel ashamed to return empty-handed?" Black Crow said coldly. Pei Tu and the others, his expression stiffened, and he couldn't help but feel even more oppressed and nervous in his heart. "This has nothing to do with them, so why get angry at them? Little Crow, these old friends have fought with me for many years, and they can be said to be companions of mine. You have to speak politely." Tai Chu's calm and casual voice sounded out from deep underground. His voice seemed to possess magic, and it swept away the nervousness in the hearts of Pei Tu and the others. They became calm and steady, and their entire bodies seemed to have relaxed. They couldn't help but sigh with emotion in their hearts. A long time ago, when they had followed Tai Chu to conquer the heavens and walk on the Grand Tao, they were so high-spirited and carefree. But since they entered the ruins of Tao, they rarely saw Tai Chu again, but as their cultivation grew, their reverence towards Tai Chu grew deeper. It was even to the extent that they often felt a sense of distance. But now, when Tai Chu said this, they couldn't help but recall the past. "Everyone, all of you can be at ease in this world. At least with me here, those opponents can't threaten all of you." Tai Chu's voice sounded out from deep underground once more. "Sect leader, we were useless, we couldn't exterminate Lin Sun when he entered the Soul's God realm." Pei Tu revealed a look of shame. The others also lowered their heads. Tai Chu said, "This has nothing to do with you, so there's no need to mention what happened in the past. After this game ends, I will give all of you a chance to corroborate your Tao to the great circle of the boundless realm. As for whether you can grasp it, it will depend on your own abilities." Pei Tu and the others trembled, and they almost didn't dare to believe their ears. No one expected that Tai Chu would actually promise to obtain such a great fortune for them. Sect leader, old people like Pei Tu who had followed Tai Chu since a long time ago couldn't help but feel emotional at this moment, and even felt like crying. It had been a long time since they experienced Tai Chu's care. Tai Chu sighed, "In the future, don't call me sect leader anymore. Don't you understand?" The biggest obstacle to corroborating your Tao to the Great Circle is your reverence and reliance towards me. If you don't sever these fetters, how can you corroborate your Tao to the Great Circle of the Tao? Pei Tu and the others trembled. Ape Ancestor, take them to find a place to cultivate, Tai Chu said. Ape Ancestor nodded and left the place with Pei Tu and the other boundless Tao Lord who were in turmoil. Until their figures disappeared from sight, Black Crow couldn't help but wonder, Sect Leader, why do I feel that you have suddenly changed? Tai Chu was silent for a moment and muttered to himself, maybe it's because I'm too lonely. The further I go on this road, the fewer people there will be around me. There are only a few people I can talk to. Now I'm good to them, just to keep them as a memory. If I don't see them again in the future, they won't think that I abandoned them. His voice gradually became low, with a sense of loss that couldn't be dispelled. Sect Leader, I'm always here. Black Crow couldn't help saying, an ape ancestor, he will always be by your side. But Tai Chu laughed, let's not talk about this. Now that Lin Sun has come and the game has begun, I'm much happier than before. Especially since he has already taken that step. This is a huge surprise for me. Surprise? Or a big surprise? Black Crow was a little confused. Black Crow was a little stunned. After a while, she couldn't help but say, is it that the more powerful he is, the more valuable he is to you? How can such a variable be measured? Tai Chu said leisurely, do you know why I never complained when I was suppressed here by the swordsman? Because he let me know that although the Tao I pursue is different, although we can't coexist, I'm destined not to be too lonely in this life. After a pause, he laughed. What's more rare is that the emergence of a worthy opponent proves that my Tao is not invincible in the world. Isn't this a good thing? That's the way to seek the Tao. Black Crow was speechless for a moment. She never knew how it was a good thing to have an enemy, and she never thought that the sect leader would be so happy because of the existence of an enemy. Sect Leader, do you think that Lin Sun is already a worthy opponent? Black Crow asked. Tai Chu was silent for a moment and said, it's rare to be happy, so it's okay to tell you. Compared with Chen Shi and the swordsman, Lin Sun is still a little short of maturity. What I can't figure out most about him is the word change, which is also the reason why I regard him as an enemy. He paused for a moment and continued. All those years ago, the eternal arc that flew out from the forbidden area of profundity ought to have been in my possession, yet it brushed past me in the end. Although at that time, with the help of the eternal boat, I entered the eternal gate, comprehended the origin of spirit, and touched the mystery of life at one stroke. But in the end, the eternal boat was lost in my hands. Speaking of this, there was a trace of surprise in his voice. It's interesting that after countless years, the eternal boat finally appeared in the hands of Lin Sun. This can't be described as a coincidence. The eternal Knight Divine Emperor was born in the spiritual world, and he fled with the eternal boat. After he reincarnated, the eternal boat fell into the hands of Luo Tongtian. However, even though Luo Tongtian comprehended the talent of the devouring abyss, he didn't truly control the eternal boat. On the other hand, the eternal Knight Divine Emperor reincarnated into Xia Ji, and when Xia Ji appeared by Lin Sun's side, it just happened to be when Lin Sun activated the heaven-accessing realm with the devouring abyss bloodline. At that time, Xia Ji found Lin Sun because of the devouring abyss, but merely because of the devouring abyss talent, she would definitely not allow Lin Sun to keep the eternal boat. Later on, when I found out about Nirvana, I finally understood that Lin Sun being able to keep this treasure was related to Nirvana. Simply speaking, the eternal boat came from the forbidden land of wonders, and its fate was related to Nirvana. Similarly, Xia Ji possessed the reincarnation of a divine emperor, and her origins were from the forbidden land of life as well. So, her transformation was related to Lin Sun's Nirvana profundity. If Lin Sun was here, he would definitely be shocked. Because a long time ago, he had indeed placed Xia Ji in the abyssal sword cauldron to bathe in the power of nirvana profundity. This also meant that Xia Ji's current cultivation was also influenced by the Tao of nirvana, and all of this had long been seen through by the absolute beginning ruler. At this moment, after he finished explaining the sequence of events, absolute beginning pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "If it's in terms of the Tao of karma, then I experienced 100,000 years of searching to draw over this eternal vessel from the forbidden area of profundity. And because of this treasure, there was the eternal night divine emperor, the devouring abyss, and the wonderful karma between Lin Sun and Xia Ji. This is what I'm interested in." When Black Crow heard this, he could not help but feel an indescribable feeling of horror. "Sect Master, do you think that this eternal boat also caused a trace of karma between you and Lin Sun?" Chapter 33:11. Tai Chu thought for a moment and said, "This is not cause and effect. In the final analysis, all this is related to Lin Sun's nirvana." Nirvana? Black Crow couldn't help but nod secretly. They regarded Lin Sun as a variable because of this mysterious power. Tai Chu sighed with emotion. "I have to say that Lin Sun has a good master. I don't know how he deduced the mystery of nirvana. In this respect, I have to admire Putti. But he is still no match for Hierarch." Black Crow said. Tai Chu said, "Wrong. If his disciple has a chance to defeat me, doesn't it show that he is more powerful as a master?" He sighed. "What's more, he didn't take the power of nirvana himself, but left it to his disciple Lin Sun. Such courage is really amazing. Lin Sun has no chance to defeat Hierarch. This kind of thing will never happen." Black Crow was not convinced. Tai Chu laughed. "When Ape Ancestor took action, I said that there is no absolute thing in this world. Only by understanding this can one not be blinded by ignorance and conceit." "Hierarch, you are right." In the distance, Ape Ancestor had returned. "Fellow practitioner, your cultivation has been exposed. Now there is no need to hide it." Deep underground, Tai Chu's voice suddenly became subtle. "Fellow practitioner." Black Crow was shocked and looked at Ape Ancestor in surprise. However, Ancestor Ape's expression was calm. He was still the same as before and said, "Cult Master, I'm not who I used to be. It doesn't matter to me whether I hide it or not." Black Crow couldn't help asking, "Ape Ancestor, who were you before?" She really couldn't calm down. Speaking of which, the Ape Ancestor had been with Tai Chu for a long time, but he had always been an old servant. Countless years had passed, and he had always listened to Tai Chu's orders, never revealing anything special. So until now, whether it was her or other people in the 9 tribes of Tai Chu, although they respected Ape Ancestor, they had always treated him as an old servant of Tai Chu. But now, Black Crow suddenly found that the identity of Ape Ancestor was not simple. He had hidden himself too deeply. Black Crow could not help but feel terrified. The Ape Ancestor was the person she trusted the most apart from the leader. Who would have thought that the Ape Ancestor would hide another face for so many years? If not for Ape Ancestor exposing his cultivation that far surpassed the level of grand completion boundless realm in front of the myriad profound Tao platform today, he would probably still continue hiding. "Miss, the past me is already dead," Ancestor Ape said. An indescribable rage surged in Black Crow's heart. It was as if he had been deceived for countless years, yet he still could not find a reason that he could accept. "Little Crow, it won't be long before you find out. Don't blame Ancestor Ape. I was the one who asked him to do this." Absolute Beginning's voice rang out. All of a sudden, the anger in Black Crow's heart turned into bitterness and helplessness as he remained silent. "Sect Master, do you think that churn she has seen through my identity?" Ancestor Ape suddenly asked. Absolute Beginning said, "In his eyes, you have already fallen into the cycle of reincarnation, and it is impossible for you to appear again. However, he might not be able to guess that it's you, but you've exposed some of your strength after all, and this will definitely arouse his vigilance. That's fine. Ancestor Ape's expression was calm. Just wait. The game has already begun. I want to see how many surprises Lin Sun, who has also taken that step on the boundless path, can bring me from the forbidden area of profundity. Absolute Beginning's voice vanished from the depths of the ground. Ancestor Ape went silent for a moment before turning around and leaving. Black Crow watched Ancestor Ape's figure vanish with a complicated expression in his eyes. Primordial Spirit World. Chun Linkong arrived before his grandfather Chun Shi's thatched cottage by himself, and then he sat on a rock at the side and said, "Grandfather, I owe little friend Lin a life this time." His voice carried self-ridicule. Thinking back to all those years ago in the ruins of fortune, his cultivation was far above Lin Sun's, and if it wasn't for Lin Sun today, he would have almost been captured and killed by Ancestor Ape. This was equivalent to Lin Sun saving his life. Didn't you help him slaughter a path of blood in the ruins of fortune all those years ago? Such kindness can't be calculated like this. If you take him as a friend, then you can't calculate who owes whom a favor. Chun Shi's clear voice came from the thatched cottage. What's more, Ancestor Ape doesn't want to deal with you this time, but he wants to cooperate with Absolute Beginning to stop me from helping Lin Sun. After all, only by hiding his strength can he take me by surprise. Chun Linkong nodded, and then he asked doubtfully, "Grandfather, when did Ancestor Ape take that step? We've been in the mysterious god domain for countless years, but why haven't we noticed any movement?" In the thatched cottage, Chun Shi was silent for a moment, and then he said, "Perhaps he had already taken that step long before he came to the mysterious god domain. This is indeed a variable that even I didn't notice. I have to say that both Absolute Beginning and Ancestor Ape have concealed their strength deeply." Chun Linkong thought for a moment, and then he suddenly smiled. "Fortunately, no matter how deeply Absolute Beginning and Ancestor Ape hide, I didn't expect little friend Lin to have taken that step now. The first round is a draw at best. It's not like what the Beginning said that we'll definitely lose." "You're thinking too simply," Chun Shi said. "Absolute Beginning's trump cards are bound to be more than just Ancestor Ape. Or perhaps he definitely has other cards up his sleeve. But it's fine. At the end of the game, we'll have to determine our true strength." Chun Linkong frowned and said, "Grandfather, there's something I've always been puzzled about. Why doesn't Absolute Beginning make a move right now? Or perhaps, why do we have to continue waiting like this? Absolute Beginning wants to see what sort of changes a variable like little friend Lin would cause when he senses the forbidden area of profundity. This will decide if he'll attack with his full strength." Within the thatched cottage, Chun Shi said, "On the other hand, I want to see if the variable that Lin Sun possesses can break through this predicament." Chun Shi paused for a moment and said, "From today onward, stay in this dimension and cultivate. Don't leave this dimension again. Concentrate on the Tao. That's the right path." Chun Linkong nodded. Hidden region. The mountains and rivers were picturesque, and the heavens and the earth were enshrouded by chaotic energy. It was like one had arrived at the beginning of the chaos. As soon as Lin Sun entered, he saw the master of the core and golden cicada standing side by side. The former wore a cloth robe, had a thin appearance, and his aura was indifferent and indistinct. The latter was still the same as he was all those years ago. He wore linen clothes, was barefoot, and had a handsome appearance like a young man. His gaze was clear, and a warm smile hung on the corners of his mouth. This was the first time Lin Sun had seen his master, the master of the core, since he'd started cultivating, so he couldn't help but feel excited. He bowed and said, "Disciple Lin Sun greets Master and Senior Golden Cicada." Subhuti smiled and said, "Come with me." After a short moment, they sat down at the side of a cliff. This place was covered in mist and surged with a dense and miraculous aura of the quintessence of chaos. Subhuti sat down cross-legged, extracted a strand of chaotic energy, and then placed it into the tea furnace along with the divine spring on the mountain and some chaotic bamboo leaves. It wasn't long before the tea boiled, and a strand of the fragrance of tea suffused the air. Subhuti poured a cup for both Golden Cicada and Lin Sun, and then he said in a light voice, "How are your senior brothers and senior sisters?" Lin Sun told him everything he'd experienced in the Sea of Destiny. When he learned that Lin Sun had used the profound of Nirvana to bring his senior brother back from the dead, Subhuti smiled and said with relief, "At that time, I noticed some clues, and guessed that your senior brother had changed his fate. Now that I've heard it from you again, I still feel that the profound of Nirvana is really wonderful." Golden Cicada asked, "Little friend, to what extent has your control over the profound of Nirvana reached?" "I've also refined it to the realm of chaos." Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "However, if you really want to study it carefully, the profound of Nirvana has long surpassed the scope of the eternal Tao. After all, even the profound of spiritual endowment had been merged with the profound of Nirvana, which made Lin Sun's Tao had already undergone a subtle and miraculous transformation from the level of boundless realm to a higher Tao. "Can I have a look?" Golden Cicada seemed to be extremely curious. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Why not?" As he spoke, he gently flicked his fingertip, and a strand of obscure aura belonging to Nirvana emerged, mysterious and indescribably wonderful. Golden Cicada observed and sensed for a moment, and couldn't help but fall silent. "Fellow Taoist, have you sensed anything?" Subhuti asked with a smile. Golden Cicada pondered and said, "This kind of power has indeed surpassed the scope of the eternal Tao, and it involves the word change that people can't comprehend. Life and death, withering and flourishing, destruction and rebirth, origin and end. There seem to be countless profound truths branded in it, but when you think about it carefully, it's like this chaos, indescribably empty, and it's really strange." "Like chaos and emptiness, what a good like chaos." Subhuti was surprised. "I never thought that fellow Taoist could deduce so many profound principles from just a strand of Nirvana aura. Could it be that you've also touched the threshold of the Tao of life now?" Golden Cicada was stunned, and said in a self-mocking manner, "If so, then it's great." Lin Sun glanced at Golden Cicada and said, "Senior, with such insight, why worry about being unable to take a step forward in the perfection stage of the boundless realm in the future? Perhaps Senior only needs a critical factor to be able to break through this layer of window paper." Golden Cicada couldn't help but let out a hearty smile and said, "Are the two of you trying to praise me to death? Let's not talk about this. Young brother Lin has just arrived at the profound God domain, so I presume you have many questions in your heart. Moreover, I'm rather curious about young brother Lin's cultivation as well, so we can seize this opportunity to have a good chat." Immediately, the three of them drank tea as they discussed the profound God domain, and it allowed Lin Sun to obtain a better understanding of this expanse of the heavens and the earth. It also allowed Lin Sun to finally understand that it was really as he'd inferred earlier. No matter if it was the Master of the Heart, Golden Cicada, Chun Shi, Chun Linkong, or the enemy experts like Absolute Beginning, all of them were waiting for the arrival of a variable like him. The reason was that everyone firmly believed that it was very likely that he who possessed the profundities of Nirvana would have a chance to truly find a safe path that led to the forbidden area of profundity. In other words, in the eyes of everyone, the profundities of Nirvana was like a key that could open the door to the forbidden area of profundity that had been tightly closed for countless years. Chapter 33:12. The forbidden area of profundity was the most dangerous and forbidden place in the ruins of profundity of the Tao. Since the ancient times until now, no one had dared to enter it. This included Chun Shi, Absolute Beginning, and that swordsman. For example, even after experiencing 100,000 years of probing and searching, Absolute Beginning had merely carried it out in the profound God domain, and his main body didn't dare take a step into it. In other words, with their cultivations, all of them were able to clearly sense the existence of the forbidden area of profundity in the profound God domain, but they were similarly able to sense the murderous aura within it. Entering it meant certain death. It was precisely because of this that they'd stayed dormant within the profound God domain for countless years, and they could only sense the aura within the forbidden area of profundity from afar in order to deduce and ponder the profundities within it, yet they didn't dare head there. But now, along with the arrival of Lin Sun, who possessed the profundities of rebirth, it allowed everyone in the profound God domain to realize that their opportunity had arrived. When he found out about all of this, Lin Sun couldn't help but go silent, and then he asked Subhuti for guidance about the profundities of rebirth. Since the profundities of rebirth are so miraculous, then why would they appear in the world of darkness? How could such a grand Tao be related to entering the forbidden area of profundity? This was the question in Lin Sun's heart. Subhuti thought for a moment before he said, I entered the Tao with my mental state and established a core Tao, and all the techniques I wrote are related to the secrets of the mental state. But practically no one knows how I stepped foot onto the path of the Tao all those years ago. The nearby golden cicada couldn't help but speak with surprise. Taoist brother, could it be that you obtained a master when you stepped foot onto the path of cultivation all those years ago? Subhuti shook his head and said, It can't be considered to be a master, and it can be considered to be a form of fate towards the Tao. When he spoke up to hear, his eyes were suffused with an expression of recollection. Before I stepped foot onto the path of the Tao, I was just a frustrated person that yearned to cultivate yet was unable to obtain it. I'd visited numerous places of cultivation, yet because my natural talent was stupid and my physique was too inferior, I was repeatedly rejected. I was naturally unwilling. At that time, I went to numerous places with the intention of finding a sect that could take me in and pass down profound techniques to me. But in the end, I wasn't able to accomplish my wish even when I was almost 100 years old. Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. He'd never imagined that his master had actually experienced such hardships before stepping onto the path of cultivation. Subhuti continued, Afterwards, I simply couldn't move any further. Given that my body was old and weak, my years of travel had caused my ki to be greatly depleted. I ended up being plagued by all sorts of illnesses, and in the end I fell to the ground amidst the mountains and rivers. At that time, I had a premonition that death was imminent, but I didn't care at all. The only thing I was unwilling to accept was that I was unable to step through the threshold of the Tao even though I'd spent my entire life trying to seek the Tao. At this point, Subhuti smiled slightly. It was also at that time that I encountered a stroke of Taokarmic luck. A young monkey who had just gained sentience appeared with a book in his arms. He humbly asked me for guidance, wanting to know what was written within this book. I took a look. That book was severely damaged, and only a dozen or so pages remained. The contents written on it were extremely messy. Fortunately, I recognized those words, so I read them out to the little monkey. After listening to it, it was extremely happy, which surprised me. Because the content of those words had long since been damaged, it was impossible to piece together the complete content. The little monkey, however, actually began to dance with joy. It was so happy that I asked it why it was so happy. The little monkey said that it recognized these words. These simple words, however, caused my heart to feel indescribably shaken. And then, I told it that before I died, I could teach it how to read and write. The little monkey was very happy. From that day onwards, every time it came to find me, it would bring me mountain water and mountain fruits to fill its stomach, while I taught it how to read and write. I didn't expect that after so many years, not only would I not die, but all of my injuries would be healed. One day, the little monkey pointed at a complete sentence on that damaged book and asked me what it meant. I looked at it. It was understand the heart, see one's nature, understand the mysteries. I explained the meaning of this sentence to the little monkey. After hearing it, the little monkey then pointed at the heart character and asked, "How should I understand the heart?" In that moment I was stunned. I didn't know how to respond. From that day onwards, I began to ponder what the heart was. After sitting there for 3 years, on a stormy and rainy night, I finally understood. Speaking of this, Subhudi's expression couldn't help but show a trace of absent-mindedness. It was an epiphany. It was as if I was suddenly enlightened. My mind became aware of the longitude and latitude between heaven and earth, the Taoist marks in the mountains and rivers, and the vitality in every blade of grass and every tree. At that time, it was as if a door to a whole new world had been opened. I finally understood what the so-called Great Way was. From then on, I embarked on a path of cultivation, and I also brought the little monkey with me. I traveled through the boundless great rivers, saw the myriad of Daos in the world, discussed Zen with Buddhism, discussed scriptures with Confucianism, discussed Taoism with Taoism. Afterwards, I took the little monkey with me and established the core sect in the land of ultimate. Speaking of this, Subhuti looked at Lin Sun and said with a smile, "That little monkey is your eldest senior brother." A strange and subtle emotion arose in Lin Sun's heart. It turned out that this was how master and eldest senior brother had formed their destiny. This was truly an indescribably wonderful Tao fate. Golden Cicada couldn't help but sigh with emotion. You don't seek help from others, but you comprehend the great way in your own heart. Taoist brothers' experience in the past is beyond our reach. Subhuti laughed with ridicule. You're wrong. All those years ago, I begged countless sects in an attempt to step onto the path of the Tao, yet I was refused time and time again. I originally thought that I would die with regret, yet never had I imagined that I would unintentionally find such a fortuitous encounter in the Tao. Only in this way would the path of the Tao I seek be formed. After a pause, he said, and at that time, after I established the core sect, I once went to the land of origin to explore the ultimate. I observed the changes of the 5 sequences of the ultimate and sensed the existence of nirvana with my state of mind. Nirvana of freedom? Golden Cicada's eyes were filled with a strange light. No, it's the seed of nirvana. Master of the core sect said, the ultimate can be regarded as the end and return of all the Daos in the world. Every time the era changes, all the Daos in the world enter the ultimate and turn into the power of origin. At that time, this nirvana was only a seed in the source of the ultimate. After many years of deduction, I can only infer that in this era, this nirvana will definitely be born in the world. Therefore, I left behind the Tao hymn of a solitary lotus. Lin Sun said, but why did Master say in the Tao hymn that nirvana is related to the immortal supreme road? Subhuti laughed. If I say that this nirvana is too powerful, it will cause too much noise. In that case, if existences like primordium are attracted, how can you get it? Lin Sun was stunned and couldn't help laughing. Obviously, he also realized that when Master left this Tao hymn, he deliberately held back. Golden Cicada asked, Taoist brother, what do you think? Do you know that this nirvana will be born in the dark world of the starry ancient road? A long time ago, I also walked around that place and didn't find anything special. Subhuti said, if you have entered the source of the ultimate, you will understand that the source power of the dark world is born in the ultimate. After I noticed this all those years ago, I deduced that the Tao of rebirth would surely appear in the world of darkness in the future. Thus, I asked my second disciple, Zhongqiu, to hold down the fort there for the sake of preventing the Tao of rebirth from being seized away when it appeared. Golden Cicada was silent for a moment and couldn't help but sigh. In the end, the root of everything must be found in the ultimate. And when Taoist brother established the orthodoxy of core in the ultimate, you inadvertently made a move and learned some of the mysteries of the nirvana first. After a pause, Golden Cicada said, but, Taoist brother, how do you know that little friend Lin can obtain this good fortune? Subhuti laughed, Taoist brother, You are too optimistic. I never thought that my disciple would definitely obtain this good fortune. Speaking of which, Lin soon can enter my orthodoxy of core because of his own fate, and not because I arranged it in advance. Golden Cicada thought for a moment and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This is fate indeed. It can't be forced or arranged. At this moment Lin Sun asked, Master, since no one knew the profundities of the Nirvana Tao all those years ago, then why do those enemies in the profound God domain seem to think that the Nirvana Tao is an unprecedented variable? Before Subhuti could answer, Golden Cicada smiled and said, It's very simple. Since little friend Lin stepped foot onto the eternal Tao, the changes in your body have been noticed by the Sovereign of Absolute Beginning since a long time ago. Of course, this is related to the natural talent you possess, Devourer of the Abyss. After all, you ought to be clearly aware that the eternal vessel flashed out from the forbidden area of profundity a very long time ago, and this treasure was obtained by your great-grandfather, Luo Tongtian, a very long time ago. On the other hand, you've inherited the natural talent of Devourer of the Abyss and possess the profundities of rebirth, so it's impossible for you to not be noticed. Only now did Lin Sun come to an understanding, and he recalled the scenes of him fighting the Sovereign of Absolute Beginning's will within the door of eternity. Coupled with the information he obtained now, he came to a complete understanding in his heart. If he traced it back to its source, it was still the eternal vessel. It was like the core of karma, and it linked up the different threads of karma between Absolute Beginning, Divine Emperor Eternal Night, Summer Solstice, and himself. This was also the reason why the Sovereign of Absolute Beginning had asked him to hand over the profundities of rebirth, Summer Solstice, and the eternal vessel while he was at the Spirit Bestial world. Young brother Lin, now that you've arrived at the profound God domain, you ought to understand that the person behind the scenes of the calamity of an era is Absolute Beginning, and the grand silence life-saving tribulation that was born during the transition of an era came from the forbidden area of profundity. Golden Cicada said in a light voice, According to our inference, no matter if it's for the sake of seeking the path towards the Tao or for the sake of ending this enmity that has lasted for a long time, Absolute Beginning will definitely use all his ability to deal with you. Because he needs the profundities of rebirth in your possession, and he needs to reclaim the eternal vessel. Lin Sun's expression remained calm and wasn't really surprised, and he said casually, I'd already thought about all of this before I came here, so I'm not afraid to fight him. Subhuti said in a warm voice, Don't be impatient. Even though the game has already begun, it still isn't the time to decide the victor. At the very least, no matter if it's us or Absolute Beginning, all of us want to see exactly how many profundities you who possess the Tao of Rebirth are able to comprehend from the forbidden area of profundity and what sort of changes you'll be able to cause. There's another chapter tonight. Chapter 33:13. Comprehend the aura of the forbidden area of profundity? Lin Sun was surprised. Exactly. The forbidden area of profundity is taken to be a restricted area for life, and according to rumor, a grand Tao that's even higher than the eternal Tao path exists here. Now that you've already taken this step and possess the profundities of rebirth, it's extremely likely that this is a fortune to you. I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Even Chern Shi and Absolute Beginning think this way. All of them want to see what sort of insights you can gain from it. This Absolute Beginning is quite interesting. Previously, after the Ape Ancestors operation in front of the profound Tao stage suffered a setback, he did not take any further action. So it turns out that he had other preparations. Lin Sun chuckled and said, If that's the case, once I trigger some changes that are enough to arouse the interest of Absolute Beginning when I'm comprehending the Forbidden Land of Wonders, it's time to decide the winner of this game? Of course. However, I suggest that you make a trip to the primordial spirit world before you comprehend the aura of the Forbidden Grounds of Wonders. Lin Sun nodded. He understood what his master meant. Chun Shi was the only existence in the profound God domain that was capable of threatening the absolute beginning realm. In these countless years of time, he'd surely sensed the aura within the forbidden area of profundity on many occasions, and he definitely had a great understanding of it. If he could learn from him, it would naturally be beneficial. Young brother, seeking guidance is seeking guidance. In my opinion, when you truly comprehend the aura of the forbidden area of profundity, it's better for you to return to the hidden world. Golden Cicada suddenly said. Subhuti couldn't help but feel rather surprised. Why do you say that, fellow Taoist? Jin Chan went silent for a short moment before he said, Perhaps I'm thinking too much. As far as I'm concerned, absolute beginning has an obsession towards the profundities of rebirth, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Chun Shi doesn't have any thoughts in his heart. He paused for a moment and continued. Even if he doesn't have any thoughts now, but if young brother Lin causes some changes that are sufficient to tempt Chun Shi when you sense the forbidden area of profundity. He didn't finish his sentence, but the meaning behind his words was very clear. Subhuti frowned. He stared at the cicada for a moment, then said, Fellow Taoist, your concerns are reasonable. Jin Chan smiled bitterly and said, I'm just worried that I'll be seen as a petty person who gauges the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a petty person and be criticized by others. Truthfully speaking, I feel extreme admiration and reverence towards fellow Taoist Chun Shi in my heart. An existence like him that adheres to the Tao of samsara and walks on a boundless path towards the Tao is far from someone I can slander or suspect. But there are too many variables in this battle. We can't afford to be careless. Subhuti nodded, then looked at Lin Sun. What do you think? Lin Sun said with a smile, Although I don't know Senior Chun Shi, I know Senior Chun Linkong. In my opinion, they won't have any other intentions. Of course, Senior Golden Cicada is right. The current situation is indeed a matter of life and death. It is necessary to be careful. I'll naturally return to Hidden Dimension after I seek guidance from Senior Chun Shi. Jin Chan smiled and said, I hope I'm just overthinking it. Without further delay, Lin Sun turned around and walked out of the hidden realm. Until Lin Sun's figure disappeared, Subhuti looked at Jin Chan and said, Fellow Taoist, in the past, you never suspected others for no reason. Could it be that you've discovered something? Jin Chan was startled and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He said, As the saying goes, concern leads to confusion. Perhaps it was because I was too concerned about fellow Taoist Lin that I said such rude word. Subhuti nodded. Indeed, concern leads to confusion. Every move of my disciple is related to the change of the entire situation. To be honest, it makes my heart faintly uneasy. As he spoke, he sighed. I entered the Tao with my heart, but I never thought that my state of mind would be unable to truly calm down at such a time. Jin Chan said in a warm voice, At such a time, not only you and I, but also Tai Chu and Chun Shi. It's impossible for them to really be indifferent. After a long moment of silence, the master of the heart core said, I've divined it before, and the unease in my heart might be because I've sensed an ominous omen. However, the omen is hidden very deeply, and it's very difficult to detect. No matter how I think about it, I think, the beginning, still has an unpredictable trump card in his hand, and it's coming for me. Golden Cicada narrowed his eyes. After that, the core master shook his head and said, Forget it, let's not talk about all of that. If my life can be exchanged for victory in this battle, then it's worth it. Golden Cicada said softly, Brother, Lin Sun is a variable. As long as he is there, the ominous feeling you have will not be irresolvable. Subhuti nodded, no longer discussing this topic. Walking out of the hidden realm, Lin Sun instantly felt that there was an obscure and mysterious aura sweeping out from the distant Taihun realm and looking at him from a distance. This was undoubtedly the aura of absolute beginning. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, What? Do you want to do it now? No, I just want to take this opportunity to tell you something related to the Forbidden Land of Wonders. The voice of absolute beginning resounded between heaven and earth. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. You're eager for me to reflect more mysteries from the Forbidden Land of Wonders? My little friend Lin knows me well. Absolute beginning laughed. The greater the variable you bring, isn't it also a variable for me? You don't have to worry about me having other thoughts in this matter before the outcome of the battle is decided. As he spoke, a green divine rainbow flashed over from the distant void, and it transformed into a jade slip 300 meters in front of Lin Sun. This jade slip contains all my experiences in comprehending the Forbidden Land of Wonders in the mysterious God territory. You can take it and study it, or you can ignore it. After that, the voice dissipated between heaven and earth, and even the aura that emerged from the Taihun realm disappeared along with it. Lin Sun couldn't help but ponder. 300 meters away, the jade slip floated quietly. It seemed that absolute beginning didn't care whether Lin Sun took it or not. If I don't take it, then it would seem that I'm afraid. If I take it, then I'll owe you a small favor. If I take it and don't comprehend it, then it would seem that I'm afraid. If I take it and comprehend it, then I'll owe you even more. Lin Sun seemed to be muttering to himself. Right at this moment, hearty laughter resounded. Ah, you don't even want to owe me a favor, and that's why you're telling me all of this, right? The voice was clear and bright like the morning bell. Lin Sun smiled and cupped his hands as he said, I knew I wouldn't be able to hide it from Senior's discerning eyes. Come quickly. I've been waiting for you for a very long time. As for this jade slip, I'll help you take it. In this way, you won't have to be in a dilemma, and your thoughts will be clear. The clear laughter was still reverberating through the surroundings when the jade slip that floated 300 m away from Lin Sun had been put away by an invisible force. This voice naturally came from Chen Shi. Lin Sun cupped his hands once more when he saw this, and then he flashed towards the primordial world. In next to no time, his figure stepped into the chaotic vortex passageway that led to the primordial world. Primordial world. Deep underground, Taichu smiled. He reached out to tug at the sword chains that bound his body. Listening to the clanking of the chains, he couldn't help but mutter, Fellow Taoist, it's a pity that you're not here. Otherwise, today's situation is bound to be even more interesting, primordial world. When Lin Sun entered, Chen Linkong was already waiting for him. Little friend Lin, you're finally here. My grandfather has been waiting for you for a long time. Chen Linkong said with a smile as he led the way forward. Lin Sun couldn't help but look forward to it. Back in the divine city of fortune, when he was comprehending the mysteries of the fortune star, he had seen Senior Chen Shi's graceful bearing. That person wore a jade-green robe and carried an ancient sword on his back. As he walked the long river of time, he exuded an unparalleled bearing. Not long ago, when he was in the mortal transformation world, he saw 3 Dharma images in the void above the sky. One of them was left behind by Senior Chen Shi. Merely the might that surged from that Dharma image was sufficient to make Lin Sun sigh with amazement. It was even to the extent that the inheritances of the Tao markings he possessed were inseparably related to Chen Shi. After all, Master Lu's master was Oracle Mountain, and Senior Chen Shi was the strongest disciple in the history of Oracle Mountain. Now, he finally had the chance to meet such a supreme legend, so how could Lin Sun not look forward to it? Since my grandfather defeated the sovereign sex master all those years ago, his disposition became indifferent and leisurely. Up until now, even I don't know exactly how formidable his cultivation is. Chen Linkong smiled as he spoke on the way, and his face was filled with pride and admiration. The sovereign sex master? Lin Sun was stunned. Right, he established the sovereign sect and cultivated the sovereign Tao of indifference. He entered the Tao without emotion, and he's extremely terrifying. All those years ago, My grandfather exhausted a great deal of effort in order to suppress him with the Tao of samsara, causing him to fall into the cycle of samsara forever and suffer the pain of being unable to transcend. We're here. When he spoke up to here, Chen Linkong instantly shut his mouth. On a nearby mountain, a tall and handsome figure stood before the thatched cottage. The figure wore azure clothes and had his hands behind his back. He seemed like a pine tree at the edge of a cliff, and he was looking over here. It was Chun Shi, a supreme legend whose name shook numerous eras. Go cultivate. Don't even take a step out of this place of cultivation without my permission. Chun Shi's casual words caused Chen Linkong's entire body to stiffen, and then he turned around and left obediently. I'm Chen Shi. Greetings, little brother Lin. In the distance, Chen Shi cupped his fists slightly and spoke with a smile on his face. His gaze was clear like the ocean, deep and tranquil, and his tone was calm yet carried the energy to calm the hearts of others. Lin Sun cupped his hands and said, Greetings, senior. Chen Shi said with a smile, There's no need to talk about seniority between us, and we should take each other as friends of the great Tao. Please come over and have a chat. Lin Sun nodded and immediately moved forward. There was a table and 2 bamboo chairs before the thatched cottage. After Lin Sun took a seat, Chen Shi asked with a smile, Would you like some wine or tea? I'm very happy to be able to meet Senior, so I'll naturally drink, said Lin Sun with a smile. Chen Shi didn't mind at all when he heard Lin Sun call him Senior. It was just a form of address, so there was no need to make a fuss about it. He took a seat as well, and with a flip of his palm, a jug of wine and 2 wine cups appeared on the table. This is the wine brewed by my wife, Qing Shui. I've been reluctant to drink it for many years in the profound God domain, and it's only because of little brother's arrival this time that I'm willing to go all out. Haha. Chen Shi smiled as he spoke, and he'd already opened the jug of wine and filled both Lin Sun and himself. Instantly, a strand of refreshing and cold wine fragrance suffused the air. Come, let's have a drink first. Chen Shi raised his cup. Lin Sun smiled and raised his cup as well. When their wine cups touched, it just happened to be like a meeting on the great path. It was all in silence. The 4th chapter was delivered. The main character of the Talisman Emperor, Chun Shi, and the main character of the Heavenly Tao, Lin Sun, have finally met. I'm quite happy in my heart. Chapter 33:14. Before the thatched cottage. Lin Sun felt very relaxed as he chatted and drank wine with Chen Shi. When he finished a jug of wine, Chen Shi put down his wine cup and sighed with satisfaction as he said, I remember drinking wine with that swordsman the last time I drank wine. He drank all 39 jugs of wine in my collection, yet he still wasn't satisfied and asked for more. How could I allow him to do as he wished? I said I'd treat him to another round of drinks when he returned from reincarnation, and I guaranteed he'd drink to his heart's content. In the blink of an eye, numerous eras have passed. His eyes were suffused with a disappointed expression. Senior, why don't you treat me to a round of drinks as well? Lin Sun chuckled as he spoke. Chen Shi smiled as well and said, Why not? However, we have to wait until the curtains to this game are drawn. He paused for a moment and continued. There's something you're unaware of. If that swordsman didn't intend to reincarnate all those years ago, then I would definitely not treat him to so much wine. Lin Sun was stunned, and then he said, Senior, to tell you the truth, I have some understanding of the grand Tao of samsara. However, I haven't grasped its core profundities, so I still don't dare believe that samsara really exists in the world. Chen Shi had a strange expression as he said, No one told you that I've grasped the complete profundities of samsara? Moreover, it was I who sent that swordsman off when he reincarnated? Lin Sun laughed bitterly and said, I really don't know about that. Chen Shi said, Then you ought to know about the river diagram, right? Lin Sun nodded. I've seen the power of this treasure in Fortune Divine City. Chen Shi smiled and said, The complete grand Tao of samsara comes from this treasure, the river diagram. When I was cultivating in the past, those who possessed the river diagram were taken to be saviors of an era. However, I only deduced later on that the energy of samsara came from the river diagram. When I arrived at the ruins of Myriad Tao, I finally deduced that the river diagram came from within the forbidden area of profundity. Lin Sun was surprised. Isn't that just like the eternal arc? She nodded. Exactly. Samsara is related to the secrets of reincarnation and rebirth, so it ought to be considered as a Tao of life. Lin Sun came to a sudden understanding. On the other hand, she had already withdrawn a jade slip, and it was exactly the jade slip that Absolute Beginning had left behind. Young brother, I'm already clearly aware of your objective in coming here. In a while, I'll naturally tell you about some of the comprehensions and experiences I obtained while sensing the forbidden area of profundity in these past few years. She played with the jade slip and said, however, before that, why don't we take a look at the comprehensions and experiences Absolute Beginning left behind? Lin Sun said with a smile, I'm also curious. She didn't waste his breath, and sent a strand of his divine sense into the jade slip. After a long time, he put the jade slip away while a trace of a strange expression suffused the space between his brows, and he said after a short while, Young brother, take a look as well. As he spoke, he passed the jade slip over. Lin Sun also divided a strand of his spiritual awareness to explore it. In an instant, numerous comprehensions appeared like tidewater. All of these comprehensions came from the Absolute Beginning, and it was something he'd obtained while sensing the forbidden area of profundity for countless years. There were numerous inconceivable scenes amidst these comprehensions, but practically all of them were enveloped by the aura of chaos, causing them to seem blurry, illusory, and indistinguishable. It was like looking at flowers through mist. On the other hand, some of the comprehensions within the jade slip were deduced from these scenes. After a long time, Lin Sun withdrew his divine sense as well, and his heart trembled slightly. According to these comprehensions and deduced profundities, Absolute Beginning obtained an understanding. The forbidden area of profundity had three meanings. Firstly, it was the quintessence that gave birth to the Tao of life, and there existed a complete Tao of life. Secondly, it was the quintessence core of the ruins of profundity of Tao. Just like the quintessence core of the ruins of creation was the river of the era, the quintessence core of the ruins of end was the 5 mountains of the ruins of end, and the quintessence core of the Kunlun ruins was the Sea of Destiny. Thirdly, it was one of the quintessences of a complete chaos. The first was very easy to understand because Lin Sun had made a similar inference earlier. The second was very easy to understand by combining the relationship between the 4 ruins of Tao. The forbidden area of profundity was in existence just like the river of the era, the 5 mountains of the ruins of end, and the Sea of Destiny. It was the quintessence of the ruins of profundity of Tao. Only the third was something that Lin Sun had never expected. One of the quintessences of a complete chaos. In the eyes of Absolute Beginning, the so-called chaos could accommodate the number of eras, it could contain endless great ways, it could give birth to countless worlds, and it could reproduce endless lives. Just like the starry sky ancient path, the boundless world, and the eternal world, these worlds all belonged to the Lingwu era. This could be regarded as an epoch of civilization. And before the Lingwu era, there were more epoch civilizations. Various epoch civilizations carried various cultivation civilizations and the great ways of heaven. But in the end, all the epoch civilizations were contained in a chaos. This chaos was not the so-called chaos quintessences when a small world was born, nor was it a law of the chaos quintessences. It was like a mother, and it carried the changes of eras, civilizations, grand Taos, and lives. Such a chaos quintessences could be regarded as a chaos era. A chaos era included the epoch civilizations, great ways, lives, the circulation of all things, and the endless vicissitudes of life. No matter if it was the immortal era, devil era, Buddha era, or shaman era. All these epic civilizations that had appeared in the past were only a part of the chaos era. There were 4 quintessences in a chaos era. They were respectively life, destiny, creation, and ultimate. In other words, in this chaos era, the quintessences of the ruins of profundity, Kunlun ruins, creation ruins, and ultimate ruins were the 4 quintessences that formed the entire chaos era. Amongst them, the quintessences of life were the core of the chaos era, and it was a supreme path towards the Tao that was practically impossible for cultivators in the world to come into contact with. On the other hand, the 3 quintessences of creation, destiny, and ultimate had evolved into the change of eras, the cycle of destiny, and the final destination of all things. On the other hand, the 4 quintessences were related to each other, and none of them could be lacking. Just like the 4 ruins of Tao, the energy between them formed a complete synergy that circulated in an orderly manner, thus maintaining the operation of the entire chaos era. This was the profundity that Absolute Beginning had comprehended from the forbidden area of profundity in the countless years of time. After he found out about all of this, it allowed Lin Sun to obtain an answer to all the questions in his heart. For example, the existence and relationship of the 4 ruins of Tao. But at the same time, he felt a great deal of shock, because many of the profundities, amongst them were things that he'd never heard of in the past. "How do you feel, Chen?" she asked with a smile on his face, as he watched Lin Sun gradually calm down from his contemplation. "I have to admit that Absolute Beginning is extremely formidable." Lin Sun weighed his words and said, "Even if he's an opponent, I have to say that he possesses extraordinary attainments in seeking the Grand Tao." Chen she nodded and said, "Absolute Beginning is formidable indeed, and he's an extremely terrifying opponent. A very long time ago, he once intended to leave this world and refine the ultimate ruins, Kunlun ruins, and creation ruins into his own Grand Tao. According to his thoughts, if he's able to refine these 3 ruins of Tao and fuse them into his own path, then it would be sufficient for him to possess the ability to refine the ruins of Tao." Lin Sun gasped. "This fellow is actually so crazy? This is a method to him to seek the Tao. However, if he really does this, then all the cultivators of the various eras and countless living beings in this world will suffer a calamity. In other words, if that time really comes, then besides him, Absolute Beginning, all the other living beings in this world will suffer calamity." Chen she spoke casually. Lin Sun said abruptly, "The Absolute Beginning laws that envelop the surroundings of the ruins of creation wouldn't have been set up by Absolute Beginning for the sake of refining the quintessence of creation, right?" "Exactly." Chen she smiled and said, "After I noticed all of this all those years ago, I made a trip there and established the divine city of creation. I suppressed the quintessence of creation within it and protected it with the river diagram. In this way, I was able to obstruct the energy that belonged to Absolute Beginning that enveloped the surroundings of the ruins of creation." Only now did Lin Sun finally understand why the ruins of creation would be trapped under the Absolute Beginning laws. Who would have imagined that Absolute Beginning would actually be so crazy as to completely refine the 3 ruins of Tao? This fellow actually seems to be willing to disregard everything for the sake of seeking the Tao. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. "Chen," she said, "if it wasn't for that, then that swordsman wouldn't have transformed his cultivation into a sword lock and suppressed Absolute Beginning within the grand chaos dimension all those years ago. He was worried that Absolute Beginning would leave the ruins of Tao and bring calamity to the world." He paused for a moment and said, "But I can't deny that Absolute Beginning is an opponent that deserves respect. Even I deeply admire his understanding of the Grand Tao and his eternal desire to seek the Tao." Lin Sun nodded, and then he said, "Senior, in your opinion, What do you think of absolute beginnings, comprehensions, and deductions towards the forbidden area of profundity? She went silent for a short moment before he said, He didn't tamper with these comprehensions because I've already comprehended the profundities he comprehended. In other words, he actually caused me to feel a sense of sympathy towards him in terms of my understanding of the forbidden area of profundity. As soon as he finished speaking, he let out a long sigh. Unfortunately, even though our understanding of the Grand Tao is similar, our paths towards the Tao are different, and our pursuits are conflicting. As the saying goes, our Taos can't coexist, and we can't be friends in the end. Lin Sun said, It's usually the enemy that understands you the best. This saying can be applied to absolute beginning as well. In the end, this battle is bound to have a victor. She said, It's still early to decide the victor. I'll seize this opportunity to discuss some insights I've gained with young brother. Lin Sun said with a smile, I'm all ears. The absolute beginning felt that the forbidden area of profundity contained the Grand Tao of life, and he took the Grand Tao of life to be the core quintessence of a chaotic era. But in my opinion, this Grand Tao of life should be called the primordial Tao path. The primordial path of the Tao? Lin Sun seemed to be lost in thought. Exactly. The so-called primordial path is the core of a chaotic era, and it's the origin of life. For example, if a chaotic era is an egg, then the primordial energy is the egg yolk, and all Taos of life are born from it. As he spoke, she spoke about some of the profundities he'd comprehended throughout the countless years of time. Chapter 33:15. Lin Sun listened quietly and occasionally asked questions. She patiently answered them one by one. Besides that, he would discuss some profundities that she had sensed yet was unable to figure out with Lin Sun. Both of them benefited from this. Unknowingly, several days had already passed. Through the discussion of the Tao, she obtained an understanding of Lin Sun's knowledge of the Grand Tao and the attainments he possessed now, and he sighed endlessly with emotion in his heart. In the end, she couldn't help but look forward to what sort of gains Lin Sun would obtain when he really went to sense the forbidden area of profundity. Senior, I intend to return to the hidden world right away and start sensing the profundities of the forbidden area of profundity. On this day, Lin Sun made a decision. She was stunned, and then he agreed with a smile on his face. He withdrew a sword-shaped jade slip and passed it to Lin Sun. This is some of the experiences left behind by that swordsman all those years ago, and the content within it isn't much different from what we've talked about in these past few days. But you can comprehend and ponder over it yourself, and perhaps you'll be able to figure out some different profundity. Lin Sun took it with both hands and cupped his hands to express his thanks. She immediately personally sent Lin Sun off, and his brows couldn't help but raise slightly as he watched Lin Sun's figure vanish through the exit of the primordial dimension while he fell into deep thought. Grandfather, why did Lin Sun leave? Chun Linkong hurried over from afar. She glanced at him and said, Didn't I say you can't leave the place of cultivation? Chun Linkong was embarrassed and said, I just wanted to say hello to Lin Sun when he was about to leave. Let's go. She turned around and walked towards his residence. Grandfather, you haven't told me why Lin Sun left. Chun Linkong caught up to him and asked, Doesn't he know that comprehending the aura of the forbidden land of wonders in the primordial spirit world is the safest? At the very least, if something unexpected happens, Grandfather will be able to help him resolve it. Maybe he has other ideas. She spoke casually. You have other ideas? Chun Linkong wasn't stupid. He pondered for a moment and frowned. Is he guarding against us? On guard. She laughed. Not really, you don't have to think too much about it. Right. What do you think of Subhudi's character? Chun Linkong thought for a moment and said, No matter if it's breadth of mind or boldness, they can be said to be rare in the world. Even his attainments in the Grand Tao are more formidable than mine. If he hadn't left his Tao karmic avatar in the heavenly cycle Tao law back in the mortal transformation realm, his accomplishments would have been far greater. Thinking of this, he felt a wave of emotion in his heart. Back then, when Subhuti entered the mortal transformation realm, he had the opportunity to place his Tao karmic aspect above the heavenly cycle Tao laws. In this way, when he challenged the 9 heavenly trials of the myriad spirits God domain, he wouldn't obtain a Tao fruit of chaos, but the quintessence of chaos. In that case, with Subhuti's wisdom and methods, he would probably have the chance to take a step out of the level of the boundless realm when he arrived at the profound God domain. Subhuti, however, hadn't done so. Only now did Chen Linkong understand that Subhuti had left his karmic Tao idol within the cycle Tao laws for the sake of helping his disciple, Lin Sun. A teacher for a day, a father for life. Subhuti once said that from the time Lin Sun entered Fangsuan Mountain when he was young until now, he had never received any guidance or teaching from Subhuti. Perhaps it was precisely because of this that he felt indebted to Lin Sun. This was also the reason why he had left his karmic Tao manifestation in the heavenly cycle Tao law back in the mortal transformation realm, giving Lin Sun an extraordinary teaching. However, he didn't know if Lin Sun had thought of this or if he had realized how great the effort and price Subhuti had paid for this was. Just as Chen Linkong's thoughts were drifting, Chen Shi's voice rang in his ears again. Then, what kind of person do you think Golden Cicada is? Golden Cicada? Chen Linkong was stunned for a moment before he said, "He's extremely extraordinary. Since I've known him until now, I've never seen him truly utilize his full strength to do something, and it seems like anything can be easily dealt with before him. It's even to the extent that I'm often curious about exactly how formidable his cultivation is." As he spoke, he smiled. Subhuti once said that Golden Cicada's Tao is higher than the heavens. As far as I'm concerned, Golden Cicada's Tao is unfathomable. A golden cicada that traversed through the various eras was praised by both you and Subhuti. I presume he's in existence with great ability. Chen Shi nodded and said, "Unfortunately, since he entered the profound God domain, he's always been lying dormant in the hidden world, and it's to the extent that I haven't been able to meet him until now." Chen Linkong shook his head and said, "Golden Cicada can only be blamed. I've invited him to the primordial world on many occasions, yet he politely refused." Chen Shi said, "Everyone on the Grand Tao has a strange temper. Never mind, let's not mention him." He turned around to glance at Chen Linkong. "Why are you still following me? Go and cultivate." Chen Linkong said, "Grandfather, Lin Sun is about to comprehend the profundities of the forbidden area of profundity, and this game has arrived at the most critical moment. Under such circumstances, how could I have the mood to cultivate?" Chen Shi shook his head and didn't say anything further before turning around and walking into his cottage. On the other hand, Chen Linkong started laughing as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. On the way back to the hidden world, Absolute Beginning's voice suddenly sounded out from within the grand chaos world. "Fellow Taoist, in your opinion, between me and Chen Shi, who's stronger in terms of comprehension towards the forbidden area of profundity? Is your desire to win so heavy?" Lin Sun laughed. "No, I was just curious about what sort of evaluation I would obtain from you." Absolute Beginning chuckled as he said, "But now I don't want to know. After all, you take Chen Shi to be your friend, so you naturally think that Chen Shi is stronger than me. Since you know that, then why ask?" Lin Sun's brows raised as he spoke. "I was just unable to restrain myself from being delighted by my prey." "Ha!" Absolute Beginning's carefree laughter resounded through the heavens and the earth, and it only gradually died down after a long time. Lin Sun shook his head, and then he turned around and walked into the hidden world. "How was your harvest this time?" Subhuti and Golden Cicada came over to greet him at the first possible moment. "I obtained a great deal," Lin Sun said, Master, I intend to enter into closed-door cultivation for a period of time from today onwards, and then I'll start comprehending the aura of the forbidden area of profundity. All right. Subhuti nodded. Little friend, don't be too hasty. Just follow your heart, Golden Cicada advised in a gentle voice. Golden Cicada admonished in a warm voice. Since this day onwards, Lin Sun had started cultivating in meditation within the hidden world. He sat alone at the side of a cliff as he reviewed the bits and pieces of his cultivation since he was young, and he calmly sorted out his attainments in the Grand Tao in the past. The numerous battles, the numerous tribulations, the numerous joys and sorrows, all of them appeared in Lin Sun's heart, and he captured their profundities before deducing their karma and summarizing their attainments. He was sorting out his past, comprehending and consolidating his own path towards the Tao. 1 month later, Lin Sun sorted it out once more. But this time, he used the path towards the Tao of every single realm as a guideline, and he categorized and summarized his mental state, soul, Tao body, and will. Every single time he came to a conclusion, it allowed him to have a different feeling and comprehension towards the path he'd been pursuing in the past. Time passed by day. At the side of the cliff, Lin Sun's figure that sat there motionlessly like a rock, and his aura was completely silent as if he'd vanished from the heavens and the earth. Until one day, he suddenly opened his eyes, and then a wisp of an indescribably profound aura appeared on his deathly silent figure. The chaotic aura that enveloped the dim world seemed to be dyed with a layer of bright vitality. The entire hidden world was surging with a mysterious force that converged towards Lin Sun, cheering and jumping around him. The mountains and rivers resonated and produced a strange rhythm along with Lin Sun's breathing. But Lin Sun's body was empty. There was no aura, no power, and not even a trace of power. At this moment, he was like a chaos, indescribable and indescribable. Bodhi and Golden Cicada, who resided in this world, were also shocked by this mysterious phenomenon at the first time. They looked at each other, and then looked at Lin Sun, who was on the edge of the cliff in the distance. The great chaos is empty, Golden Cicada murmured, and an indescribable expression appeared between his brows. He sighed with emotion. Young brother Lin's attainments are completely unfathomable. How fortunate I am to have such a successor. Bodhi's heart was filled with gratification. Master, Senior Golden Cicada. On the cliff, Lin Sun stood up, and he looked towards the distance as he spoke with a smile. Next, I'll be going to comprehend the aura of the forbidden area of profundity. During this period of time, I have something to hold on to, so even if a battle of life and death occurs, there's no need to worry about me. Bodhi nodded with a smile. All right. Golden Cicada cupped his hands from afar. After that, Lin Sun raised his eyes to look towards the sky. His body was empty, yet his soul was like a divine ray of light that shot into the sky. It flashed out of the hidden world, passed through the layer upon layer of chaotic chi in the profound God domain, and flashed towards the boundless depths, the grand chaos realm. A wave of intense sounds of chains colliding suddenly resounded from the depths of the ground. Absolute Beginning laughed with anticipation. It's finally here. Let me see what sort of changes will occur in the forbidden area of profundity because of the arrival of this variable. Heya, who stood alone on a branch, couldn't help but be excited, and he muttered. The outcome is finally going to be decided. I've waited for too long. The nearby ape ancestor, who sat cross-legged on the ground, raised his head slightly and looked towards the distance. His expression was filled with indifference, and only a strand of flames surged in the depths of his eyes. He withdrew the swords on his back, and then he pressed his palms together. Clang! The black and white Tao swords actually combined into one, and they transformed into a chaotic Tao sword. Chen Shi, do you know that I've been waiting for this day for a very long time? Ape ancestor muttered in his heart. The primordial world. Chun Linkong suddenly raised his head and said, Grandfather, it has begun. Chun Shi's clear voice sounded out from within the thatched cottage. The time to decide the outcome has indeed arrived. But it's merely the beginning. Let's continue watching. His calm voice carried a trace of anticipation. At this moment, even the founding ancestors of the 4 ancestral halls, Primordial, Void, Heaven Shaman, and Sure, and the 9 Lord of the Destiny Downlords of the 9 divisions of Absolute Beginning had sensed this, and their bodies shook. They'd realized that this battle had already entered into the moment where the outcome would be decided. Chapter 33:16. Lin Sun's divine sense was like a ray of light that traversed the boundless space and ceaselessly moved forward, and it passed through countless spaces that were suffused with chaos after an unknown period of time. Suddenly, he saw a seemingly boundlessly large chaotic space, and a strand of a dangerous aura appeared along with it, and it was filled with the aura of a taboo. A strong premonition arose in Lin Sun's heart. Entering it would mean certain death. But Lin Sun wasn't alarmed, and he was delighted instead. He knew that a very long time ago, Chun Shi, Absolute Beginning, and that swordsman had sensed this forbidden aura that was dangerous to the point others didn't dare take a step past it. This was sufficient to prove that the chaotic space he saw now was the forbidden area of profundity. Without any worries or hesitation, Lin Sun's divine sense was like a sharp bolt of lightning that tore through the mist, and it flashed directly towards the forbidden area of profundity. When his divine sense entered the forbidden area of profundity that was covered in chaos, Lin Sun suddenly had an indescribable feeling, and it was as if he'd followed the path of the Grand Tao and entered the nest of the Tao. The boundlessly vast chaos was filled with traces of the Tao, and there was utterly no need to experience it, comprehend it, or search for it before one could naturally sense it. But at the same time, an unknown and dangerous aura coiled around this chaotic world, and it was filled with the aura of taboo and destruction. Amidst that dangerous aura, there's a strand of the quintessence aura that belongs to the deathless tribulation. In an instant, Lin Sun captured the familiar dangerous breath. Early on in Tribulation Realm, Lin Sun had comprehended the essence and profundities of tribulation from the quintessence of chaos in this realm. The changes in the world and the passage of time in the world all contained the aura of tribulation. It was precisely because of the existence of tribulation that everything in the world revealed a form of opposition and balance between life and death, destruction and rebirth. There was no good or evil in tribulations, but all life had tribulations. Those that dealt with the tribulations could obtain fortune, and those that experienced the tribulations and perished were nothing. On the other hand, the deathless tribulation was the same. It possessed the word fate, and it was a fate tribulation that targeted boundless realm cultivators. It was born during the passage of eras, and just like the 5 signs of Tao, it was a universal law of the Grand Tao that existed in the world. However, after Absolute Beginning comprehended the quintessence of the tribulation in the past, he possessed the ability to borrow and interfere with the lifespan tribulation in the profound God domain. For example, the Emissary of Destiny and the Bell of Absolute Beginning that appeared in the Great Silence Lifeless Tribulation were actually techniques from the Absolute Beginning. And the Great Silence Lifeless Tribulation was related to the Tao of Life. This also meant that any boundless realm existence that emerged in this chaos era would face this tribulation. He wasn't deliberately targeting anyone. Those who transcended tribulation would live, while those who resisted would die. This was one of the Tao of Life. While thinking, Lin Sun's spiritual awareness had already swept along the breath of the Great Silence fateless disaster. Gradually, his divine sense sensed the aura of the Grand Silence nothingness tribulation within the chaos that was growing stronger and stronger, and it caused him to be unable to avoid feeling horrified. After that, his divine sense seemed to have flashed into a violent world of tribulation, and the phenomena of tribulation were everywhere. Bolts of lightning danced about violently while lightning flickered, and destructive chaotic flows of energy swept through space. It was a terrifying scene. At the same time that Lin Sun's mind was suppressed, he also felt waves of indescribable comprehension. This was indeed the source of the grand silence, lifeless tribulation, and it was branded with the various secrets of this tribulation. In Lin Sun's divine sense, he saw the shadow of a bell. This shadow was completely condensed from the source energy of the grand silence, lifeless tribulation, and it floated in this world. It was indescribably huge, and it seemed to fill every inch of space. But when he looked carefully, it was only 9 inches tall. The bell of absolute beginning. Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. No, this is only a shadow formed from the grand silence, lifeless tribulation, and the real bell of absolute beginning is no longer here. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun understood that the absolute beginning must have sensed this world and had insight into the power of the grand silence, lifeless tribulation. For the sake of utilizing the power of this tribulation, he'd once placed the bell of absolute beginning in this world, and it experienced the tempering and infiltration of the grand silence, lifeless tribulation day and night. In this way, a unique connection was formed between the grand primordium bell and the quintessence energy of the grand desolation calamity. Thus, absolute beginning only needed to utilize the grand primordium bell to easily utilize the energy of the grand desolation calamity. When I've seen through it and seen through it, it's nothing special. Lin Sun's divine sense directly left this world and continued flashing towards the depths of the forbidden area of profundity. All along the way, he sensed numerous profound and unbelievable auras, and those auras contained energies that were rather familiar to him. There was creation, destiny, karma, time, and space. Lin Sun was shocked in his heart when he noticed the aura of the spiritination world, and then his divine sense flashed over. Sure enough, it wasn't long before he sensed the source energy of the spiritination world within the chaos. It really is exactly the same as what I saw within the door of eternity. Absolute beginning was right. The spiritination world is located at a corner of the forbidden area of profundity. However, my divine sense is merely able to sense it, and it's unable to interfere. Lin Sun recalled the scenes of him fighting with absolute beginning's will in the spiritination world, and he couldn't help but feel slightly strange in his heart. At that time, was absolute beginning's divine sense watching all of this as well? After a short moment, Lin Sun's divine sense continued sensing forward. However, along with the passage of time, he started to feel strenuous because the forbidden area of profundity was too large, and it simply seemed as if it had no boundaries. With the strength of my soul, I should be able to persist for a period of time. Lin Sun didn't intend to stop sensing, and his divine sense continued flashing forward. All along the way, he'd combined the experiences of absolute beginning, Chun Shi, and the swordsman, and he naturally comprehended its profundities when he sensed some profundities. This should be the energy of samsara. Suddenly, Lin Sun's divine sense captured a trace of an unusual and mysterious aura, and he sensed along the aura. Instantly, he seemed to have seen a complete cycle of reincarnation, and there were the alternating cycles of life and death, oblivion, reincarnation, termination, rebirth, and various other unbelievable scenes surging into appearance. It really is as Senior Chen, she said. Samsara is a type of life Tao, and his river diagram treasure was definitely born from the quintessence of samsara. A few days ago, Lin Sun had once discussed the profundities of the samsara Tao with Chun Shi, and Chun Shi didn't conceal anything and shared his understanding and comprehensions of the samsara Tao with Lin Sun. This allowed Lin Sun to intentionally recognize the secrets of samsara. So, when he sensed the energy of the quintessence of samsara at this moment, Lin Sun had a different kind of understanding in his heart. Reading a myriad of books was inferior to traveling a myriad of miles. Consulting and discussing with Chun Shi was a type of gain, and when he experienced it himself, this sort of gain transformed into a type of comprehension that was accumulated in his own attainments in the Tao. After a long time, Lin Sun's divine sense flashed forward once more. He'd forgotten the passage of time, or perhaps, the passage of time in the ordinary sense didn't exist in the forbidden area of profundity at all. On the other hand, his divine sense sensed more and more obscure and profound profundities as it flew, and it caused him to sometimes exclaim with admiration, sometimes be immersed in it, sometimes be horrified, and sometimes have the feeling of sudden enlightenment. In the end, Lin Sun finally dared confirm that just like the profundities Chen Shi, absolute beginning, and that swordsman had comprehended, the forbidden area of profundity was the quintessence of the ruins of Tao, and it contained the profundities of the life Tao. Moreover, it was miraculously related to the other three ruins of Tao. Suddenly, a wave of exhaustion surged into his heart, and only now did Lin Sun suddenly notice that the energy of his soul had been greatly exhausted. On the other hand, the area before the forbidden area of profundity still seemed to be boundless and without an end. But right at this moment, the eternal vessel on his body suddenly trembled slightly, and then it transformed into a strand of light that flashed out of the hidden world. It flashed past the layer upon layer of chaos in the profound God domain, and it moved along the direction Lin Sun's divine sense extended towards the eternal vessel. Golden Cicada was the first to notice this scene, and his pupils focused. This was a variable that no one had expected. Subhuti said, "Perhaps Lin Sun has already sensed some profundities, and these profundities are related to the origins of the eternal vessel." They knew a long time ago that the eternal vessel was a mysterious treasure that had flashed out from the forbidden area of profundity a very long time ago, and it was obtained by Taichu in the beginning. But later on, because of the eternal night divine emperor, the eternal vessel had fallen into the outside world, and it had fallen into Lin Sun's hands in the end. The eternal vessel. In the depths of the grand chaos realm, Taichu couldn't help but mutter. This ought to be a variable that was expected a long time ago. But I wonder what effect this treasure will have on Lin Sun's comprehension of the forbidden area of profundity. His voice carried a trace of a strange emotion. Originally, this treasure ought to have belonged to him. Sect Master, Lin Sun has merely comprehended for 7 days, yet the profundities he's comprehended from the forbidden area of profundity seem to have far exceeded our imagination. Black Crow couldn't help but speak. With the experiences left behind by me, Chen Shi, and that swordsman, it would be unusual if he's unable to comprehend even some profundities. In the depths of the ground, Taichu said, not to mention that he possesses the profundities of rebirth, and he himself is an unpredictable variable. In my opinion, the more profundities he's able to comprehend from the forbidden area of profundity, the better it is. Just wait, along with the appearance of the eternal vessel, what Lin Sun will sense next will be something that I look forward to the most. The primordial world. Qin Linkong couldn't help but say, "Grandfather, have you deduced the origins of this eternal vessel? This treasure is from the forbidden area of profundity just like the river diagram, and it's a chaotic treasure that was born from the quintessence of the forbidden area of profundity. A very long time ago, I and that swordsman had analyzed it together, and we felt that there wasn't merely the river diagram and eternal vessel within the forbidden area of profundity. Moreover, this eternal vessel should be called the vessel of life. After all, it was born within the forbidden area of life." Chen Shi said in a light voice, "A few days ago, young brother Lin spoke to me about this treasure as well. According to what he said, this treasure is capable of opening up an eternal door that leads directly into the spirit endowment world. Both of us felt that the eternal vessel is a key that was born from the chaotic quintessence of the spirit endowment world. But now it would seem like the origins of this treasure are obviously not so simple." Chen Linkong was stunned. "So in this way, the appearance of this treasure at this moment is a variable?" "Of course," Chen Shi said. "I just don't know if the variable caused by this treasure will bring fortune or calamity to young brother Lin." Chapter 33:17. When the eternal boat suddenly flashed up, Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. This unexpected event was something that even he hadn't expected. When the eternal boat followed along his divine sense to search for him, Lin Sun instantly felt as if his divine sense was riding on the eternal boat, and even his soul felt relaxed. After that, the eternal boat carried his divine sense and started to flash towards the depths of the forbidden area of profundity. What does it intend to take me to look for? Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. This scene was truly too inconceivable. He originally thought that the eternal boat was a key to open the spirit bestial world, yet never had he imagined that this treasure would undergo such a change at this moment, and it seemed to be leading him to a certain place. Right, Xia Ji is still in the eternal boat. Lin Sun suddenly thought of this. He immediately sent his divine sense into the eternal boat with the intention of awakening Xia Ji, who was placed within it. But at this moment, his divine sense was obstructed by an obscure force. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun noticed that the eternal boat emanated a mysterious fluctuation of energy, and it seemed like the rhythm of life. This was a force that he'd never seen in the past. It's definitely because my divine sense sensed something in the forbidden area of profundity that caused the eternal boat to undergo such a change. Lin Sun calmed down. At this moment, merely his divine sense was moving through the forbidden area of profundity, and even if he encountered a lethal threat, he wasn't afraid of anything. The only thing he was worried about was Xia Ji, who was within the eternal boat. I'll definitely not allow anything to happen to you. Lin Sun took a deep breath and concentrated his mind within his divine sense. Swish! At this moment, the eternal boat was indeed like a boat that carried Lin Sun's divine sense through the layer upon layer of chaotic aura as it flashed towards the boundless depths of the forbidden area of profundity. All along the way, Lin Sun's divine sense was extremely relaxed, and the energy of his soul hadn't been consumed at all. This allowed him to calm down and sense the scenes and mysteries all along the way. However, compared to his comprehension from before, he couldn't help but feel like he was looking at flowers on horseback. It was truly because the speed of the eternal boat was too swift, and it actually seemed as if it wasn't obstructed at all along the way. After an unknown period of time, suddenly, the boat of eternity shuddered and came to a stop. On the other hand, Lin Sun saw a tree in his divine sense. This tree was rooted in the chaos. It was only 9 meters high, but in Lin Sun's spiritual awareness, it was so high and vast that he felt small. But from the looks of it, this tree was only 90 feet tall. What surprised Lin Sun was that the 4 branches of the tree showed the phantoms of the 4 great Tao ruins, the ultimate ruins, the Kunlun ruins, and the ruins of wonders. The aura they emitted was also the origin of the 4 great Tao ruins. On the other hand, these 4 branches were completely bare. There were no leaves or fruit. Instead, there were circles of veins. Lin Sun sensed it with his spiritual awareness, and suddenly his mind was about to explode. A huge and mixed picture of enlightenment rushed into his soul like a landslide and a tsunami, making his spiritual awareness blank for a short time. After some time, Lin Sun saw a void. It was empty and there was nothing. Suddenly, a gray aura of chaos emerged in the void, constantly condensing and growing until the void was completely filled by this chaos. After that, the primal chaos continuously surged, as if it was nurturing something. This process lasted for an unknown number of years. Finally, one day, a life force was born in the primal chaos, causing the entire primal chaos to show a strange and mysterious rhythm gradually. In addition to the force of life, there were many kinds of completely different forces in the chaos. At this time, they were like the origin of chaos gathering together. They gathered together, vibrating, colliding, transforming, and evolving. In the end, they turned into the 4 great Tao ruins. When the 4 great ruins of the path appeared, it was as if the heavens and earth had been split apart. The embryonic form of an epic world appeared in the chaos. It constantly twisted, expanded, and stretched. In the end, it finally stabilized completely. Soon after, endless worlds, endless life, and endless chaos appeared in this epic world. All these bizarre things outlined the civilization of an era and deduced the magnificent changes of the world. Cause and effect, time and space, fate. All kinds of wonderful forces intertwined and collided, perfecting the rise and fall of an era civilization in a cycle. When this era world went from prosperity to decline, it was like fallen leaves returning to their roots and converging into the ruins of creation. Before long, a new era world was born in this chaos. The era was constantly changing, and the endless lives in Tao were also constantly changing. The only thing that didn't change was the 4 great Tao ruins. They were stationed in this chaos, running through the change of every era civilization. Boom! Lin Sun only felt a shock in his mind, and the picture in his mind suddenly disappeared like a bubble. His divine sense was still on the eternal boat. In the chaos in the distance, the mysterious ancient tree was silent and motionless. But Lin Sun could feel that although the previous scenes had disappeared, there was a wonderful feeling in his mind. This kind of feeling was related to the birth and formation of a chaos era. This ancient tree was born in the forbidden area of profundity, and the quintessence aura of the 4 ruins of the Tao surged into appearance on its branches. Moreover, one can even comprehend the changes in this chaotic era from its birth until its formation. In this way, it would seem like this tree is equivalent to a witness that has witnessed everything that happened during this chaotic era. Thinking of this, Lin Sun couldn't help wondering why the eternal boat would bring his divine sense here. He tried to feel the aura on the eternal boat again. This time, he made a surprising discovery. The aura on this treasure was actually the same as the aura of the ancient tree in the distance. Could it be was it this tree that gave birth to this treasure? Lin Sun pondered and deduced calmly, trying to understand the mystery. But in the end, he couldn't figure it out. Lin Sun frowned while his divine sense looked towards the ancient tree in the distance once more, and he sized it up carefully. After a short while, he was suddenly stunned as he realized a problem. Can I give it a try with the profundity of rebirth? After all, rebirth was related to the Tao of life, and it was even because of rebirth that he was taken to be an unprecedented variable. But before Lin Sun could give it a try, an unexpected event occurred abruptly. The eternal boat that carried his divine sense suddenly trembled at this moment. After that, Xia Ji, who was hiding within it, was suddenly teleported out. Her delicate figure trembled as she sized up the surroundings, and her clear eyes were filled with bewilderment. Obviously, she didn't realize where she was. On the other hand, Lin Sun directly sent a voice transmission with his divine sense when he saw this. Don't panic. This is the forbidden land of wonders. Stay by the side of my divine sense. Xia Ji's clear eyes focused, and she instantly calmed down. At the same time, within her and Lin Sun's divine senses, the eternal boat glowed brilliantly, and it seemed to have obtained a miraculous transformation. It ceaselessly shrunk and condensed. In the end, it transformed into a palm-sized leaf that was the color of chaos. But in next to no time, the aura on this leaf started to wither, and it seemed as if it had lost all its strength and drifted down to the roots of the tree. It was like a fallen leaf returning to its roots, and it completely vanished without a trace. This, Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. Could it be that the eternal boat carried my divine sense all the way here, causing its strength to be completely exhausted? Exhausted? A fallen leaf returns to its roots. Perhaps the eternal boat was originally a leaf from this ancient tree, and it just inadvertently flashed out of the forbidden land of wonders all those years ago, causing absolute beginning to obtain it. Yet this time, when it carried my divine sense to this ancient tree, it seemed as if it had returned to its parent body, and it withered and fell into silence. Lin Sun faintly felt that his inference was probably correct, and there was definitely a form of miraculous cooperation between the eternal boat and this ancient tree. It was precisely because of this that it sensed his divine sense and allowed him to have the opportunity to arrive here and witness its final home. When he thought up to here, he suddenly thought of something. The eternal boat was a leaf condensed on this ancient tree. Then would the river diagram Senior Chun she obtained be like this as well? If it was like this, then how many leaves had condensed on this tree during this chaotic era? The eternal boat was able to open the door to the spirit endowment world. Then would other leaves like the eternal boat be like keys that could lead to the other secret realms in the forbidden land of wonders? The more he thought about it, the more Lin Sun felt that this ancient tree was extraordinary. It was born in the forbidden land of wonders and had once witnessed the birth and formation of this chaotic era. Moreover, it was branded with the quintessence aura of the four ruins of the Tao, and even the leaves it condensed were very likely mysterious and precious treasures like the eternal boat and river diagram. How could such an ancient tree possibly be ordinary? Lin Sun, I'm unable to leave this place without the eternal boat, right? Xia Ji spoke abruptly, and it jolted Lin Sun awake from his deep contemplation. Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. At this moment, he was only a strand of his divine sense, and if he were to withdraw it, then so long as he didn't encounter any obstructions on the way, then he would be able to return smoothly. But Xia Ji was different. She'd arrived directly within the forbidden land of wonders along with the eternal boat, and she'd even arrived in the depths of the forbidden land of wonders. After all, the forbidden land of wonders was filled with extremely terrifying dangers, and it was sufficient to make figures like Chen Shi, absolute beginning, and himself feel fearful and not dare take a step into it. Presently, without the eternal boat, how could Xia Ji possibly have the chance to leave this place alive with her cultivation? Don't panic, there's surely a way to deal with this. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and then his gaze shot once more towards the nearby ancient tree. Even though this tree is completely bare and without leaves, I possess the energy of the Tao of rebirth. Perhaps I'm able to make it undergo a transformation and condense a leaf. Even if that doesn't work, there's surely another way. In short, I'll absolutely not allow you to be trapped here. His voice revealed resolution. Xia Ji nodded and said, If I want to investigate it carefully, then the Divine Emperor of Eternal Night was born in the Forbidden Land of Wonders as well, whereas I'm the reincarnation of the Divine Emperor of Eternal Night. Now that I've arrived here, it ought to be no different than returning home, right? This thought was very strange, and the perspective was very special, yet Lin Sun was unable to refute it. Because it really seemed to be like this. No matter what, I just have to be careful. After Xia Ji's interruption, Lin Sun's state of mind had calmed down greatly. On the other hand, the energy that belonged to the profundity of rebirth surged into his divine sense, and he started to approach the ancient tree in the distance. The fourth chapter was delivered. Just one thing, Tianjiao would be done next week. After the battle in the Forbidden Land of Wonders came to an end, there would be an epilogue written about Lin Sun, his family, friends, and of course, the marriage with Xia Ji. After that, the book would be finished. As for the news after the book was finished, it would be gradually released on Goldfish's WeChat. Those who didn't follow it could search for Xiaojinyu 233 and follow it, so that they would be able to see it at the first possible moment. Chapter 33:18. When Lin Sun's nirvana ultimacy touched the ancient tree in the distance, an incredible scene appeared. Buzz, the ancient tree trembled slightly, and its branches moved on their own silently. At its roots, the rolling aura of the origin of chaos seemed to wake up from a deep sleep and kept gushing out. Lin Sun felt his mind tremble, and his mind was in a trance. He seemed to have turned into a seed buried deep in the chaos, being nourished by the power of chaos day and night. After a long time, boom, Lin Sun felt a strange and abundant life force, which was the most primitive rhythm of life, resounding like the roar of the creation of the world. As the rhythm of life became stronger and stronger, Lin Sun felt a force of transformation and nirvana burst out. Then, the seed that he had transformed into grew roots and sprouts, taking root in the primal chaos. His life had already become completely different. In the following years, the seedling constantly absorbed the power of chaos and was constantly nourished by the aura of the origin of the Great Way. It witnessed the formation of the 4 Tao ruins from scratch, the evolution of the epic world from embryonic form to complete form, and the rise and fall of the epic civilizations. As for this seedling, it quietly grew and transformed over the endless years. Later on, the sapling grew into an ancient tree. Its branches were luxuriant, and it was covered in leaves that emanated chaotic energy. Every single leaf was branded with a profound quintessence energy of chaotic energy, and it was completely different and ever-changing. Every time an epic civilization declined, the leaves on the ancient tree would wither and fall, returning to the chaos and turning into the most primitive nourishment of the Great Way. When a new civilization of opportunity appeared, new leaves would grow on the ancient tree, and the cycle would repeat endlessly. But one day, an unknown catastrophe appeared in the chaos. Before the ancient tree had time to react, it was severely injured. Many lush branches were broken, and the leaves withered and fell when the catastrophe disappeared. The ancient tree only had bare branches and trunk left, and its roots were seriously damaged. What was more terrible was that, after this catastrophe, it lost the power of transformation and recovery, and was declining step by step. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun suddenly woke up. His mind seemed to explode, and countless mysterious and obscure breaths emerged, surging like rivers and seas. After a long time, Lin Sun finally calmed down. When he looked at the ancient tree again, Lin Sun couldn't hide the strange emotion in his heart. He understood. This tree was formed from the Tao of life that was born in the chaos epoch. Or perhaps it could be called the miraculous tree of life. Its roots were connected to the 4 Tao ruins. Every single time an era appeared, this tree would condense luxuriant leaves, and they represented the different profundities of the Tao of life. For example, the eternal arc was a leaf that was born from this tree, and it could open up the spirit bestowal world. It possessed the secrets of innate talent in the life Tao. On the other hand, the other leaves represented the other profundities of the life Tao. For example, the energy of samsara that Chun Shi had once grasped. It was conceivable how shocked Lin Sun was when he understood this. The origin of life came from this tree, and the profundities of the life Tao came from this tree. Without a doubt, this verified the inference of absolute beginning, Chun Shi and that swordsman. The Tao of life really did exist in the forbidden area of profundity. Why is it practically impossible to comprehend the Tao of life in this world? It's just like a legend that no one has been able to step foot onto in the countless years of the past? Now Lin Sun understood. The reason was that a calamity had appeared during the chaos epoch a very long time ago. This calamity heavily injured the miraculous tree of life, and it shattered the Tao of life. This was equivalent to destroying a complete path towards the Tao of life, causing it to become shattered, and only some traces of it could be sensed in the forbidden area of profundity. For example, even though spirit bestowal quintessence and samsara were related to the Tao of life, they were only branches of the Tao of life. However, even though the ancient tree had suffered a heavy injury, it hadn't perished completely. It was precisely because of this that there were still countless forms of life that could reproduce and emerge during the chaos epoch. The only flaw was that the Tao of life had been shattered, causing the boundless realm of the eternal path towards the Tao to be taken to be the ultimate realm. At this point, the numerous questions in Lin Sun's heart had been answered. Moreover, he'd comprehended the various profundities of the chaos epoch from its birth out of nothingness until it transformed into the world, and he'd comprehended the course of life of the miraculous tree of life from a seed to the point it emerged from its shell and grew into an enormous tree. All of these comprehensions had settled within his state of mind. All of this allowed Lin Sun to realize that so long as he repaired the miraculous tree of life, then he would be able to reconstruct the shattered path towards the Tao of life. And this was related to the nirvana energy. The reason was very simple. Rebirth energy was a portion of the quintessence energy of the miraculous tree of life, and it was capable of urging its growth and transformation. However, after the calamity that occurred a very long time ago, the miraculous tree of life had suffered a heavy injury and lost this portion of its quintessence. It was equivalent to losing its ability to transform and recover, causing it to become like this. Simply speaking, the profundities of rebirth were a portion of the quintessence energy of the miraculous tree of life. And this was exactly the origin of rebirth energy. Knowing this, Lin Sun couldn't help sighing with emotion in his heart. The lost power of rebirth energy of the miraculous tree of life had turned into a seed in the quintessence of the ultimate ruins, which was finally born in the dark world and transformed into nirvana of freedom, which was then obtained by Lin Sun. In fact, this was equivalent to further proving how marvelous the relationship between the four great Tao ruins was. However, although Lin Sun had uncovered many mysteries in his heart, he couldn't help but have new doubts in his heart. Where did the calamity that severely damaged the miraculous tree of life that year come from? Lin Sun didn't know. That calamity came so suddenly that the miraculous tree of life was caught off guard and suffered a heavy injury. It could be imagined how terrifying and taboo this calamity was. Lin Sun even suspected that this calamity wasn't born in this chaos epoch, but came from outside this chaos epoch. Of course, whether there were other chaos epochs besides this chaos epoch, Lin Sun didn't know. The only thing he was sure of was that when he repaired the miraculous tree of life with rebirth energy one day, he might be able to learn some clues about this calamity from the memory of the tree. Moreover, if he could repair the miraculous tree of life, it was equivalent to repairing the fragmented Tao of life. When he stepped foot onto the end of this path, perhaps he would have the chance to see if there were other chaos eras outside this chaos era, and if there was a path towards the Tao that was even more lofty than the Tao of life. Summer solstice we can leave later. After a long time, Lin Sun's mind conveyed a thought. How to leave? Summer solstice was curious. Of course, we have to rely on this ancient tree. Lin Sun said, however, when we leave and return to the mysterious god realm, our enemies, such as Tai Chu, Black Crow and Ape Ancestor, will definitely attack us with all their strength. In other words, it's time to decide the victor of this game. Summer solstice asked, "Are you sure?" Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, "There is nothing in the world that can be absolutely sure. However, now I have no fear of fighting with Tai Chu. The only thing I can't guess is whether Tai Chu has other trump cards." Summer solstice said, "What about you? Do you have other trump cards?" Lin Sun laughed, "Of course. Then what else do you have to worry about?" Speaking of this, Summer solstice suddenly seemed to wake up and said, "You still worry about my safety, don't you?" "Yes." Lin Sun said, "When you came here, you hid in the eternal boat, so you were not intercepted by Tai Chu. But now the eternal boat has disappeared. When you return, it is very likely to attract the attention and attack of those enemies." After a pause, he said gently, "However, you don't have to worry. I will leave the hidden realm and meet you as soon as possible." Summer solstice nodded and said, "When shall we leave?" Lin Sun said, "Let those enemies wait a little longer. After I integrate all the mysteries I have realized along the way into my cultivation, it is not too late to fight with them." "Okay." Summer solstice agreed crisply. Hidden realm. On the edge of the cliff, Lin Sun stood motionless like a clay sculpture with his hands behind his back. However, no one noticed that in his state of mind, he was fully comprehending all kinds of wonderful and indescribable mysteries and mysteries. After his divine awareness swept into the forbidden land of wonders, What he saw and felt along the way were all comprehended and deduced by him at this moment, and turned into a stream of understanding of the Great Way and integrated into his own cultivation. Time went by day. Beauty and Golden Cicada waited calmly, but even they did not expect that Lin Sun could comprehend the mystery of the Forbidden Land of Wonders for so long. It had been 3 months, and there was no sign of ending. However, they had patience, and they vaguely felt that the more it was like this, the more it undoubtedly proved that Lin Sun must have an unexpected harvest when he was comprehending. Taihun Realm. Deep underground suddenly came the sigh of Tai Chu. In these countless years, I can only comprehend for 3 months at most, and the power of my soul will not be able to bear it. I never thought that Lin Sun could reach this step in his first comprehension. It really surprised me. It can be seen that he, who possesses the power of nirvana, must have gained a lot this time. Not far away, Ape Ancestor looked indifferent and calm. Not bad, not bad, Tai Chu said with a smile. Then wait a little longer. There is no hurry. The greater the benefits Lin Sun gains, the greater the benefits for us. Of course, when he wakes up from the comprehension, it will be the time to determine the winner. I am looking forward to discussing the superiority of the Great Way with Lin Sun. His voice was full of expectation. In the primordial spirit world, Chun Shi and Chen Linkong were also discussing this matter. They expected that Lin Sun's comprehension this time must be extraordinary. All of this undoubtedly confirmed their previous speculation. Lin Sun, who possessed the power of nirvana, was indeed an unprecedented variable. Today was the winter solstice. After Goldfish finished eating, I will continue to write the second chapter. Chapter 33:19. Half a year, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, no one had expected that Lin Sun's meditation would last for so long, and there was no sign of ending until now. Even though everyone had sufficient patience to wait, this abnormal scene still caused many different reactions. But nothing strange happened. Everyone chose to continue waiting. Until 10 years later. On the edge of the cliff in Hidden World, Lin Sun, who had been standing like a clay statue for 10 years, suddenly said, "Master, Senior Golden Cicada, it's time." In the distance, the hearts of Subhoodie and Golden Cicada shook, and then extraordinary splendor surged into appearance from the space between their brows. After 10 years of meditation, Lin Sun had finally awakened at this moment. "What do you mean by that?" Subhoodie forcibly suppressed the emotions in his heart, then asked with a smile. "I've already comprehended what I should. I can't let Absolute Beginning and the others wait any longer," Lin Sun said with a smile. Golden Cicada's eyes lit up. "You want to have a showdown with him?" "Exactly." Lin Sun nodded. Subhoodie, however, frowned slightly. "Are you certain that you are confident in being able to deal with Absolute Beginning?" Lin Sun said with a smile. "Not really. It's just that if we delay any longer, we will have to fight to the end sooner or later. There is no need to wait any longer." He seemed relaxed and calm. "Little brother Lin, could it be that you obtained a breakthrough in your cultivation while comprehending the profundities of the forbidden area of profundity?" Golden Cicada couldn't help but ask. "It can't be considered to be a breakthrough. I just obtained a completely new understanding of the Tao of life, and I've already discovered the quintessence of this path. In the future, I'll have a way to head to the forbidden area of profundity to seek a step further on this path," Lin Sun said softly. The Golden Cicada was obviously extremely shocked, and it was stunned for a moment before it couldn't help but clap its hands and praise. "If I'm not wrong, then little friend being able to obtain such a harvest is related to the rebirth energy, right?" Lin Sun nodded with a smile. "Senior, you have sharp eyes. The power of nirvana is indeed closely related to the way of life." Pausing for a moment, he continued, "Once the grudge between me and Absolute Beginning is resolved, I will naturally have a good chat with Senior." "Good," Jean Chan said cheerfully. Is there another reason why you insist on participating in this final game today? Subhuti suddenly spoke out. Lin Sun was silent for a while and nodded. Subhuti didn't ask any further questions. He immediately said, "When do we head out?" "Now." "Master, Senior Golden Cicada, please don't intervene in the battle with Tai Chu. This person has other trump cards, and he has already stepped on the threshold of Life Tao. His cultivation is unfathomable, so I can deal with him alone." Lin Sun said softly, "Master, Senior Golden Cicada, don't intervene in the battle with Tai Chu." Subhuti's heart was filled with an indescribable emotion. His disciple had grown to the point where he could take care of him, his master. The student had surpassed the master. Wasn't this what he had always wanted to see? "Don't worry, we won't go looking for trouble." Jin Chan laughed. The three of them immediately flew out of the hidden realm. The heavens and the earth of the profound God domain were covered in layers of chaotic mist, and countless secret realms floated into appearance. As soon as Lin Sun, Subhuti, and Golden Cicada emerged from the hidden realm, they were detected. "Young friend Lin, what is your purpose in coming here?" Absolute Beginning's voice resounded from the depths of the Grand Chaos Realm. It was like a clap of thunder that passed through the Grand Chaos Realm and resounded through the profound God domain, causing the world to tremble. "How about a showdown?" Lin Sun spoke casually. Absolute Beginning was silent for a moment, and then he suddenly roared with laughter. "I've been waiting for this opportunity for too long." Rumble, rumble, the sound of chains colliding resounded from the depths of the ground, and then a thin figure stepped out into the sky. He wore a black robe, had black hair that hung down to his waist, and his figure was extremely slender and dignified. His body was covered in a layer of grand Tao chains that flickered with horrifying fluctuations of sword intent. The entire Grand Chaos Realm suddenly trembled. The chaotic mist roiled, and the boundless mountains and rivers collapsed and transformed into powder that drifted in the air. His might was too great. He was like a supreme overlord that had appeared out of thin air after countless years, and he didn't bother to conceal his aura at all. On a large tree, Black Crow flapped his wings and rose into the air, transforming into a young girl in black clothes. Her exquisite appearance was peerlessly beautiful and cold, and her eyes seemed to be scarlet and translucent. "Sect Master!" Black Crow was very excited, and all the words he wanted to say transformed into a single shout in the end. Clang! The ape ancestor stood up, and his figure that was tall like a mountain transformed into a figure that was over 3 m tall, while his aura rose steadily like a volcano that had been suppressed for countless years and erupted. On the other hand, the sword in his arms seemed to be unable to restrain its killing intent, and it emanated a clear sword howl that shot into the sky. The ape ancestor's expression was still indifferent and calm as before, but hatred surged in the depths of his eyes. This day has finally arrived. In the next moment, the figures of Absolute Beginning, Black Crow, and the ape ancestor vanished into thin air. "Grandfather, it's time to decide the victor." Chen Linkong stretched his figure within the primordial world, while his eyes were bright like swords. "After waiting for so long, it's finally time to fight." Chen Shi's tall and handsome figure walked out from the cottage, and then he glanced at Chen Linkong and said, "Aren't you afraid of death? Don't I still have you, grandfather?" Chen Linkong chuckled. Chen Shi nodded and said, "Don't worry, I'll save you from reincarnation if you die. However, you'll have to recultivate on your path towards the Tao at that time. So, consider it carefully." As he spoke, he walked out of the primordial world in a leisurely manner. The corners of Chen Linkong's mouth twitched, but he didn't hesitate to follow Chen Shi excitedly. In the heavens and the earth of the profound God domain, as the figures of Absolute Beginning, the ape ancestor, and Black Crow appeared, a strand of a murderous and oppressive aura effused out. The heavens and the earth were deathly silent. "Young brother Lin." Absolute Beginning cupped his hands from afar with a smile on his face, but the chains on his body seemed extremely dazzling. The ape ancestor and Black Crow stood side by his side, and they looked over coldly. Lin Sun's brows raised slightly when he saw this scene from afar, and he cupped his hands slightly as well. Looks like you're even happier than me. How fortunate it is to have an enemy in my Dao. Absolute Beginning smiled. He only stared at Lin Sun, and he directly ignored Subhoodie and the golden cicada. If by any chance you lose, then the outcome will be death. Chen Shi walked over swiftly from afar, and Chen Linkong followed closely behind him. You're right. Even if I can split myself into thousands of clones and leave a chance of survival, I definitely won't do so at this time. After all, it would seem that I have misgivings about Absolute Beginning's state of mind. Absolute Beginning glanced at Chen Shi and said, If you have misgivings in your heart, then how can you win this game? Chen Shi pondered for a moment and said in agreement, That's true. The more the Great Tao is like this, the more you can't leave any way out for yourself. If that's the case, then you've already lost in terms of state of mind. So, you've already cut off your way out? Absolute Beginning asked with a smile. Of course. As Chen Shi spoke, he had already stopped in the void, and then he glanced at everyone present. When his gaze fell on the ape ancestor, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. In the next moment, he sighed with emotion, It really is you, old fellow. He seemed to have seen through the ape ancestor's identity and origin. If you can't even deduce this, then you don't deserve to be regarded as my lifelong enemy. At this moment, the ape ancestor's expression was cold and indifferent, and he didn't conceal his aura at all. Although he was standing beside Absolute Beginning, his aura seemed to be not inferior at all. Senior, do you know this person before? Lin Sun was surprised. At this time, Absolute Beginning and the others formed a camp and stood in front of Lin Sun, while Chen Shi and Chen Linkong stood far away on the other side. From a distance, they were like three camps, standing in a triangular formation. However, everyone knew that Chen Shi and Lin Sun were in the same camp. Of course I know him. Chen Shi said casually, This person is the Sovereign Sect Master. A long time ago, he was suppressed by me in the samsara. He could neither live nor die, and could only suffer and suffer in the endless samsara. However, before he revealed his strength, I didn't expect that he had actually escaped from the samsara and turned into the ape ancestor in front of us. He is the Sovereign Sect Master? Chen Linkong was surprised. He had heard his father, Chen En, and the other seniors talk about the Sovereign Sect Master since he was a child. How could he not know that the strongest enemy his grandfather, Chen Shi, had encountered all those years ago was the Sovereign Sect Master? Lin Sun couldn't help but raise his brows. When he paid a visit to Chen Shi last time, he happened to hear Chen Linkong talk about the Sovereign Sect Master, and he knew that the Sovereign Sect Master was extremely terrifying. But even he didn't expect that the ape ancestor by Absolute Beginning's side was actually Chen Shi's old enemy, the Sovereign Sect Master. I see. At this moment, Black Crow's delicate body trembled, and her eyes were complicated. She finally understood who this old servant who had been by the sect master's side since long ago was. The ape ancestor's expression was indifferent and calm as before, and he said, Chen Shi, this time, we have to put an end to this. Chen Shi sneered, If I can suppress you once, I can suppress you countless times. Why should I be brave when I've defeated you? A wisp of piercingly cold hatred flashed in the depths of the ape ancestor's eyes, and then he recovered his composure and said, Then let's give it a try. Absolute Beginning smiled and said, Everyone, there's no need to be impatient. In our opinion, this game of chess will definitely come to an end. However, I want to have a chat with young brother Lin before that. As he spoke, his gaze shot towards Lin Sun, who stood in the distance, and said, Young brother, can you seize this opportunity to chat with us about the profundities you comprehended in the forbidden area of profundity? If it was a friend, then it wouldn't seem unusual for a friend to make such a request. However, Absolute Beginning was clearly aware that they were enemies, yet he'd actually made such a request at this moment, and it seemed to be very unexpected. Moreover, Lin Sun smiled and actually agreed readily. Why not? In the end, it was because of your help that I was able to comprehend so many profundities. Now that I've obtained something, I'll naturally share it with you. At this moment, Chun Linkong and Black Crow, who stood at different areas, couldn't help but take another glance at Lin Sun, and they obviously felt it was slightly strange. However, no matter if it was Chun Shi, Absolute Beginning, or the ape ancestor, their expressions remained unchanged, and it seemed as if none of them felt it was unusual. This extremely subtle scene was noticed by Subhuti, and he couldn't help but think in his heart. If it's in terms of disposition, then Chun Linkong and Black Crow are slightly inferior. He couldn't help but glance sideways at the golden cicada. However, the golden cicada was tranquil and gentle as before.